Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live broadcast. It's Tuesday, the 15th of October, 2024. My name is CareyHolzman, and being October 15th, we are 1 year away from the support of Windows 10 ending on October 14th. This coming October 14th, 364 days away. So plenty of time, no need to panic. All the anxiety of everybody worried about Windows 11 from 2 years ago when it was 3 years away from Windows 10 was 3 years away from support ending, people were already in a panic mode. Basically, there was no reason for anybody to be in a panic mode. That was all clickbait. And we've seen some reports of some websites falsely reporting that the end of support was 2024 yesterday. And October 14th, they didn't read the date right. So no need to panic. If you're still running Windows 10, you still have a full 12 months. And if I were you, if you were my client, I'd advise you to look into upgrading that computer sometime in the summer. That still gives you a good 5 or 6 months to find a replacement, to stop using a desktop PC and perhaps go to a tablet or a phone. If all you do is consume and you don't create, there's no reason for you to have a PC. Or if you're a gamer, I suppose, but then you wouldn't need that advice from me. Or keep yourself up to date. Computers are always evolving. Technology very rarely allows, ever in the history of computers, for a computer to run over 10 years. This is standard par for the course, and there may be an option for paid extended support on Windows 10, but that's usually reserved for corporations, and it's typically 4 times the cost of replacing the computer. But, you know, to each their own. Just know what to expect. You got 12 months to think about it before you have to do anything. There's no rush. Continuing to use Windows 10 into 2026 is not advisable unless you don't care about your security or for some reason are delusional and think you're impervious. That's how everybody gets their data stolen. Basically, they deny it's possible and then it happens. So you can believe whatever you want to believe, but it doesn't control reality. And if I were you, I would take my advice very, very seriously. Don't become a victim of bad decisions. Windows 10 is being upgraded because the internet is being upgraded every day. And the hackers that attack you will be using the latest and greatest to attack you. And if you can't afford to buy a new computer and you need to use Windows 10 in 2026, I recommend you take it offline or find another way. Again, your computer will have to be 10 years old or older to not be compatible with Windows 11. And that's all you should need to know. Computers are not toasters. They're not appliances. They are not designed to just pull off the shelf and use indefinitely. They never have been, and this is no different than Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows Millennium, Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. We continue. Every time a new operating system comes out, people hate it. Then the one after that comes out, and people say, I hate the new one. I'm sticking with the previous one that they previously hated. Welcome to our reality. It's your decision to make. It is not mine. I'm not telling you what to do. Simply advising you of best practices, and the reasons why are not strictly about money. They're about protection. And if you want to consider they're about money, it's really about your money, because it's what the hackers are going to do when they get your account. Whether they encrypt your data, whether they steal your identity, or they empty your bank account or your credit cards, it's your money the hackers are stealing. It's your choice. In the meantime, on to brighter things. Today I want to cover a part 2 of the UM760 Slim. You know, I was really excited to review this, and because we're so interactive here on the channel, I allow the conversation to take precedent over the content because you guys are far more important to me. And if that means we run out of time and I didn't get to do everything I wanted to do, then we make a part 2, and that's why we're here today. I wanted to check 2 things on this machine. One I was not fully aware of, which is the RAID capability. So for that reason, I've got a couple of fanxiang S880 Gen 4 drives. And we're going to try and put this in a RAID 0 mode. I don't recommend it. This is not really the ideal machine for a RAID configuration. I don't know why they're offering it, but since it's there, I guess we'll give it a shot. Now, 2 of these drives combined in a RAID 0 are more expensive and far more risky of data loss than a single Gen 5 drive. And if you use 2 Gen 3 drives to your RAID 0, you might as well just spend half the money and get 1 Gen 4 drive if what you're after is performance and reliability. On the other hand, if you've got 2 Gen 3 drives laying around of the same capacity and you just want to use them, I suppose you could do that, but I just hope you're backing your data up regularly, and setting this up is probably not going to be very clear. I don't know. I haven't rehearsed this. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll find out together if it's intuitive or not. The other thing I wanted to test, and I was eagerly wanting to test, was the USB 4 port on this device. I want to see if the Zyke drive will perform at like 3,800 megabytes per second, which is faster than your Gen 3 NVMe that's installed in your computer externally through USB 4. And they've already decided that there's a USB 4 2.0 standard. USB 420? USB 4 2.0. That's going to be 80 gigabits per second, then theoretically doubling the throughput from 3,800 to 7,600 megabytes per second. Megabytes, not megabits, megabytes. Multiply that times 8, that'll get your megabits. But basically, that standard's only been ratified, it's not been implemented yet, but that's what's coming next. And I'll be super excited because that's super fast data transfers. I don't know many people that can really justify needing that speed, but in the years ahead, that may seem like nothing. Right now, it seems overkill for 95, 96% of all computer users who just want it just because. That's okay. I don't know that it's solving a problem anybody's been complaining about for external storage speeds, but that's what's coming. So these external drives we're testing now at USB 4, as impressive as they might seem, they're going to double again. Probably in the next year, year and a half, we'll see those products. I mean, we're still waiting to see USB 4 ports on machines. And, unless you're getting the latest and greatest, you probably don't have any. Whether or not you need it or you want it, I guess that's up to you. In the meantime, let me say hello to everybody joining us in chat here today. Let's see who we've got in our chat room. Hello and welcome to Michael Sayers and Adobe Tech. There's Bill Sony. And Tony's RC, Brian Woodley. Frankie B joining us there from New York. Mortant 1210 says hello. There's Terrell Turner. Luke Greenia from Vermont. Pangiatis Grammatopoulos from Athens, Greece joins us. Welcome in. There's got to be a nickname for Panagiotis. I had a friend growing up in Michigan, and his name was Dino. And I did not know until the teacher called roll call and mentioned a name. I think his name was Constantino, and that the nickname for that was Dino. Maybe someone can remind me, but clearly it was Greek. I just thought his name was Dino. What do I know? I was 9 years old. So when they mentioned his full name, I'm like, there's nobody in the class with that name. There's got to be a shorter name for Panagiotis. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Dean Schimmersheim says hello. There's Brad Rawlings and Doman 2000. Charlie Purdy, Dustin Fuller all say hello. David Graham joins us. There's Marlena in the chat room. She's busy at work making some last minute changes to the video notes and thumbnail as I decided last minute what today's video was going to be about, or even if I was going to do a video today. I had a long, tough day yesterday during the members only video, and quite embarrassing. The issue I was having was I was using the wrong remote. I'll talk about it on the next members only video. I feel like such an idiot, but I'm human despite the rumors. Let's see what else. Chris Johnson renews membership, now a member for 29 months. Thank you so much, Chris. Old Man 55 says hello, and Terry says hello. Phil Stodd joins us, says hello. Ron Barnish, Dan Nilsson, Patrick Holcomb, and Gil Garcia and Brad Revel all say hello here in the chat. Charlie Purdy, now a member for 4 months. Right on. Thank you, Charlie. He says it's been a pleasure. I agree. Thank you so much for being a part of this amazing community. You guys are, it's unlike any other community I've seen online. And of course, to me, that's the most important part, more important than the videos, are you guys. So we're so glad to have you here. We're honored to have you here. There's Planet Cryo saying hello, and Mark Gaines says hello. And Panagiotis says his nickname is Panos. I can do Panos. I could totally do Panos. Hope I'm saying that right. Let's see. Andy Woodbridge and Moss Khan, Darren Gilholm all say hello. There's Richard DeFries and Alan Barsness. And Robert Jakowski says hello. Madman Dark Jedi. Bruce De Leon. I hope I got everybody. Welcome in all. We're happy to have you here. Philip M. saying hello from England. Right on. Viewers from England, Scotland, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the US, all over the UK. And every once in a while we see viewers from Greece, Brazil, Japan, South Korea. We usually get those in ones and twos, but I'm always thrilled that I can stand here in a room and broadcast out around the world, and everybody can hear me within seconds of when I speak and see me, and it doesn't cost $2.99 a minute. All right. So I guess I got to break this out of the box. I had put this all away after the show because I have such a small workspace. We're still in the process of putting Studio C together. So everything is still very disorganized. And if I don't put something away when I'm done with it, good luck finding it in all of its little components that go with it, which is part of the problem I had Monday, which again, I'll explain next Monday. All right. Poorly Boy says hello. There's Easy Otter joining us. I got a thumbs up from Panos. Thank you, Panos. A shout out and a thank you to our friends at Minisforum who have been putting up with my unusual review style. But you can't say I'm not thorough, even if sometimes we go a little off the beaten path. It's there because the audience joining us live is interested in that subject matter. If you're watching passively after the videos have aired, you are missing out on the point of this channel, which is to interact with us, to interact with each other, to interact with me. And just all you have to do is be kind. It's that simple. We're welcoming all kind individuals of all races, genders, countries, religions. None of that matters because jerks exist among all of that. We just want kind people. And if you're a bit shy or uncomfortable, just pop into our live chat and say hello. That's all you have to do. We'd love for you to do that. Let me get to the bottom of this, quite literally and figuratively, and get my power supply out. Again, I like how small this power supply is. And yeah, I think that's all I need out of there. Now, let me clear some more desk space. I will eventually figure out what I'm going to do here for a bench, but in the meantime, we have to keep moving and the show must go on, as they say. So let's see, we're going to plug power in here. And I think the first thing we need to do is we need to test the Zyke drive. We want to test the USB4. And I want to do that for two reasons. One, we had an issue with the Zyke drive not performing at full speed on the Minisforum MS01 until we swapped the cable, the USB-C cable that it comes with. It comes with two of them, and they both failed to connect it to the full speed. But then when we went to the Orico drive, which ran fine on the Minisforum MS01, it ran at full speed. So we took that cable, which was your suggestion, by the way. I thought it was a waste of time. We took the USB-C cable that came with the Orico drive that also included a USB-C to Type-A converter that this does not. We didn't use the converter, but it's just the idea that the Orico drive comes with that. This is USB-C only with no converter. And wouldn't you know it, this ran at full speed with Orico's cable. When I reached out to Zyke to ask for an explanation of this bizarre oddity, they said, well, check Microsoft for a firmware update to the Thunderbolt. I'm like, why would that be Microsoft? Wouldn't that be Minisforum? Now, every other computer we have tested the Zyke drive on, which has only been two others, one Minisforum and one something else, it has performed with its cable as advertised at full speed. Every review I've seen on this, it operates at full speed. Everybody loves this drive. So you can imagine my surprise when it ran at half speed, no matter what I did. And the Orico drive ran at full speed. And this was made out, according to reviews I saw online, this was made out to be the the faster, better drive, when that was not our experience. The benefit of these videos being live, unrehearsed, unscripted is that we don't know what we're going to get, and we can't cover it up in editing. I don't know if we got bad cables. I don't know if it's the MSO1. I don't know if it has to do with all the way Minisforum implements their USB4. But had we never tested the Zyke drive, if all we did was test the Arico, there wouldn't be any problem. This is the only drive that exhibited that half speed. And the reason you're buying this isn't to get it for half speed. It's to get it full speed. So if we're getting 1,800 megabytes per second or 1,700 megabytes per second when we're expecting 3,600 to 3,800 megabytes per second, it's very disappointing and puzzling. I guess we're going to start there. So I have not yet tested the USB 4 on this device. When I take one of these Gen 4, you want to use a Gen 4 drive if you want to go 3,800 in this external enclosure. If you use a Gen 3 drive, you won't go faster than around 3,400, 3,500. So it's up to you. It's not a big difference. The Gen 4 drives do run a bit hotter, but that's why it's such a big heat sink here. There's two cables that come with this. Neither cable performed at full speed on the MSO1. Only the cable from Arico did it. To the eye, they're visually identical. I have no idea what's going on with their cable. I seem to be the only reviewer on the entire internet that had this problem. I think it's a safe drive to buy if you have USB 4. I doubt we're going to repeat the problem here. I think it's something, I think the MSO1 I have is a pre-production model. I don't know unless I go buy another MSO1 retail to test it. I don't know. But if it's just that one computer and this one drive and the odds of you pairing those together, and if you do, let me know your results. The good thing is if you buy anything from Amazon here in the US, you get a 30-day free return period, regardless of why you're returning it. So if you have an MSO1 and you want to try that, you know you can get your money back if it doesn't work. I'd love to know if it's my pre-production model. I don't know. Is there a firmware update from Microsoft for a Thunderbolt made by a different manufacturer? I have no idea. So let me get this hooked up. I need power to our 120 watt power brick here, which I should have down here. And we're going to plug that in. I need an HDMI cable, which I have down here. Look at me being all organized and not tripping over myself today. Yesterday was definitely a Monday. I'm just saying. For me, some days I should just stay in bed. All right, let's get our Ethernet, even though we don't need it. We'll plug it in there. I need a keyboard and a mouse. Turn this on. And we'll turn this on. And I'll plug this in here, like so. And then we'll turn that on, right? And then we'll go over to my settings here for, I call this camera 2. And if we bring that up, there we go. We're starting to see it boot. Chris Johnson said he's got a friend in Chicago named, his father's name's Panayotis. You know what, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. You probably have the pronunciation correct, I would guess. Henry Hansen says Carey does like mini PCs. Why wouldn't I? They're lightweight, they're inexpensive, they're fast, they're quiet, they're fully capable. What is not to like? The problem when you're building your own computers, you can run into a lot of incompatibility issues or struggle to get things fitting right, whether we're talking about the constant BIOS updates with 13th and 14th gen Intel chips, or the constant updates with AMD, the latest AM5 chips, or the video card, expenses, waiting on the 50 series from NVIDIA, which is supposed to be announced, I guess, at CES. Then you got the new Intel chips coming out the 24th, which probably going to be a bit slower in gaming, but a whole new design. All of this is kind of like buying a laptop, except you don't deal with a battery or a screen, a built-in keyboard or trackpad or speakers. It is very portable, very, very affordable. You can't build one as cheap as you can buy these mini PCs. For the amount of power and what you get for the money, I can't imagine why anybody would want to build a PC unless you're a gamer or you just enjoy tinkering. You're the kind of person that would buy like a Heath kit back in the 70s and solder your own radio together instead of just going to the store and buying one. I'm not putting that down in any way. I'm simply stating that you should pick your lane. Mini PCs aren't right for you. I'm not saying you're wrong. And if big PCs aren't right for you, I'm not saying you're wrong either. I'm here to introduce you to opportunities. And the problem we run into, and the reason why you're going to see more and more mini PCs, is they're kind of taking over the market. And they're far cheaper for me to make the content, since YouTube is no longer providing us payment through monetization to cover the cost of PC builds. We still will show a build from time to time, but I can't spend $1,000 on a build to make a video that earns $100 or maybe $200. That puts me $800 in the hole for one video when I have at least 3 to 4 videos a week to make, 4.5 weeks a month, right? There's 48 weeks in a year, so it's a little over 4 weeks a month. So that means if I did PC builds 3 times a week times 52 weeks, if that's all I did, I'd be in the hole about $80,000. I cannot afford, the channel will shut down. On the other hand, many PCs are far cheaper for us to purchase and maybe sent to us for free for review, on top of other gadgets like the Zyke drive. And as such, we're trying to, running a YouTube channel this frequently, this much content, costs a ton of money. We're talking about, I don't know, on a minimum $6,000 to $8,000 a month is what it costs to make the videos, right? If we talk about the cost of everything you see on the bench, you can calculate it, go in the history of the channel, take 30 days worth of videos, calculate it all out. And then if you want to, you can average $10 per 1,000 views, add all those views up, calculate what it cost versus how much we made. We're in the hole, okay? But I'm hoping that with your contributions and your memberships, you guys can fill in that gap so that we can at least, if nothing else, break even, and hopefully things will turn around and get better. In the meantime, when companies like Minisforum want to send us devices for review, we gladly accept them. The Zyke drive, we were sent free for review. We had to buy the drives. We bought the Deco. TP-Link has never sent us anything for free. Everything you see from TP-Link from today all the way to the past, we've purchased that with the contributions and the membership money and the small amount of money we make from YouTube. That's how it's all paid for. We also get a little help every time you guys buy from Acronis, RoboForm, or VIP CDK deals, who also offer you guys 30% off their already great prices. And I do mean those are good prices, regular retail prices, a bargain. I've been paying for it full price for years before we established these relationships with these companies that I use myself. I recommend to my customers. They're a bargain, but you guys get 30% off. And when you do that and use our Amazon links, that also helps fill in the gaps a little bit in the income. We're not getting rich, but we're staying afloat. That's what's important right now. Hopefully the water's calm. We'll see what happens. Now, getting back to this, I want to prep the Zyke drive. So again, I put everything back in the box, so it's all like new again. And Henry Hansen says those Heath kits were fun. Sure they were, for sure. And you know, what you have to understand is my YouTube channel isn't one of those home lab, home enthusiast channels. My channel is about running a business. I'm sharing with you what it's like to run a computer repair business and what you have to think about with regards to keeping your doors open, paying your rent, and being able, you know, you got to think, if you can't keep your doors open, you can't help any customers. And the customers that love you will no longer be able to utilize your services if you're not around anymore. So if you're not doing it for yourself, in my case, I think the service I offer to my community is a bargain because I'm honest. I'm very, very aggressively priced. I'm very quick to respond. And, you know, I'm not taking advantage of anybody. Competition is always there. People are always looking to save money. Customers always want it done yesterday. I'm very lucky to have a few customers that have been with me for going on 2 decades now. They won't go to anybody else. And, you know, if the YouTube thing, for whatever reason, doesn't become sustainable, I can always flip back over and try and build up this repair business, which is what the YouTube channel is built on. and try and provide you guys information you're not getting from most other YouTube tech channels, which in many cases are nothing but paid for commercials disguised as reviews on the bigger channels. When you get the littler guys like me, we're not going to get the Samsungs and the big, Logitech and Intel advertising accounts. That's not to put those channels down. That's what they do. That's okay. I'm simply stating I'm not doing that. Sometimes people are like, your videos take too long. If you want to watch a commercial, go watch one of those other tech channels. I'm just saying, sometimes that's what it takes to pay the bills and buy a warehouse and have employees that you have to pay annual salaries to. I can barely make it with just myself, let alone any employees. So I certainly can appreciate the business sense those bigger tech channels have. That's not important to me. I'd like it, but what's more important is we build a sense of community and that the content I make is honest and not controlled by a corporation. I don't want to be beholden to anybody other than my viewers. Now, with that said, one of these drives is already open and one is brand new. So let me get back to this. Oldman55 said the Zyke drive works on his daughter's Geekcom IT13 on the USB4. Appreciate the update. I expect it'll work on everything with USB4. I think the MSO1 was a 1 in a million shot. That was the one I've been using. It's still right here for me to grab because I like the MSO1. That's one of my favorite Minisforum PCs, and it just so happens we ran into that issue. I can't explain it. Just should have bought a lottery ticket that day. We'll see if it happens again. If it happens again here, we'll know it's a Minisforum related problem. Otherwise, I wouldn't expect it to occur on any other manufacturers, whether it's Geekcom or Ace Magic or Asus. I can't imagine, because no other reviewer had any problems with it, just me. And I've not been able to replicate the problem except on the MSO1 and by switching the cables. Otherwise, the cables it comes with works fine and everything else so far. We're going to test it one more time just to verify. It's really weird, but I'm glad it happened because that differentiates my content from everybody else's. Mine's real. You know it's real. It's live. It's unscripted. Warts and mistakes and all, because you know what? When you watch something that's been edited, it's not a replication of real life. It's controlled content. This is uncontrolled chaos, just like life. All right, I got to remember how to open this. You pull up on it or something, right? It's been a couple days. I've slept since then. There it goes. So you pull up, pull it away. Then there's our thermal pad. There's our M.2 slot. Easy peasy. We got this. Super easy to put this together. Now, it's not really intended to be a temporary, like, I'm going to clone a drive or recover data off of it type of external dock. You can use it that way, but it's really meant to be a permanent enclosure. Whether or not you want to buy a drive specifically for it, or you have an M.2 laying around that you figure, hey, instead of leaving that laying around, I could put it to some use, even if you don't get the full, Gen 4 speed. Maybe you got an older M.2, smaller capacities, lower speed. At least you can start using it again. And then you have the option to upgrade this later if you want to grow into USB 4. Now, somehow this goes back in, which I think there's little grooves here, which I think go this way. And you slide it in first and then push it down. That's it. That's our assembly. We have a built-in USB cable right here. We'll use the built-in one. Plug that in. Doesn't matter which end. What is this? Oh, this comes with a longer USB cable, but it's meant, as I mentioned earlier, the Zyke drive comes with 2 USB-C to C cables. There is no USB-C to A or adapter. It needs to be in a USB Type-C. Let's try it out. We're going to go back over to this desktop here, and I'm going to plug this in to our USB 4 port, which, let me just look at the front and make sure. Yeah, there's only one USB-C on this, so that makes it easy to know which one is the USB 4. If I had more than one, I wouldn't be quite sure. And let me see, full screen over here. Then let's go over to this PC. Yeah, there it is. There's our 2 terabyte fanxiang drive. It's completely empty and formatted. So let's go to Crystal Disk Mark Portable and Disk Mark 64. And let's go ahead and select drive D. And let's run all the tests on it. Now we want to see somewhere between 3600, 3800 here on this top left number. We were getting 1800 before. Look at that, right on the nose, 3800. So what's really weird is the Zyke cables that are included do work fine on every computer we've tested it on, that every reviewer has tested it on, except the Minisforum MS01. It's clearly not a Minisforum issue, but all we did to fix it was use the Orico USB-C cable, and they only give you one with the Orico, with a USB Type-A adapter, Type-C to Type-A adapter, that Zyke doesn't give you. And Orico's cable plugged into the Zyke drive in the MS01 gave us these numbers we were looking for. Without the Orico cable on the Minisforum MS01, we were getting half of that speed. So I'm happy to say that is kind of a 1 in a million thing there. I don't know what's going on. I don't much care. And it may be because I have a pre-production or a prototype of the MS01. I don't know that I have a full retail version. When Minisforum sends me computers to review, sometimes I get them retail, like they're literally shipping from Amazon, and other times I get them from China, from Hong Kong via DHL. And I never quite know what they're sending me with regards to if the product is finalized, which is why I'm not allowed to sell these products or profit from them in that way. They are not meant for the public. That being said, if we buy anything using channel funds to make a video, we can sell or give those away as we can afford, since it's ours. And that's why I say I don't like being beholden to any corporation, but in that way I'm okay. That's not a big deal. They're not forcing me to do a review or to monitor the review, to approve it or require any changes before we're allowed to publish, or to require a publication date. It's all done on a handshake and a gentleman's agreement. They'll send the product, I will review it. I will review it my way. A lot of companies don't like that. So I think it says a lot about any company that sends us product, that they truly believe their product is going to work just fine, that it can withstand my scrutiny on a live video that they can't control. Hence the whole issue with the Zyke drive, right? Everybody they sent the Zyke drive to that reviewed it, all reviewed it well. I think I'm the only one who had that problem, and I may be the only one who reviewed it with an MS01. I don't know, but as long as we can offer you at least a different take on other reviews of the same product, then mission accomplished here. Obviously, we can't control that. We didn't know that was going to happen, and we diagnosed it live on camera down to the cable with the help of you guys. I would have never thought that I thought changing the cable was a waste of time. And I always tell you guys, never assume. And I think this is like a disease. I think I'm catching it from many viewers, and I'm starting to take on the attitude of, well, why bother testing that when I've been telling you guys stop doing it, and now I'm doing it. And I think it's because I'm mirroring. So many times viewers have said, oh, I can't be bothered to do that because I know it's not the problem. And I'm like, hey, if you are writing me for help, you must follow my steps. Don't question them. I don't care if you've done it before. I don't care what your excuse is. If you want my help and you don't want to accept my help, then don't ask for my help. No matter how pointless it may seem, you must follow my instruction. Now, if I would follow my own advice, I probably would have gotten to the solutions a lot faster. But hey, I'm a human being. Sometimes we need these reminders to sort of leave some scars. So in the future, we don't repeat the same bad behaviors. Yeah, I've been not following my own advice lately, and I'm aware of it now. And I just need to make more of I need to raise my self-awareness in my diagnoses to listen, what would Carey do? Even though that's me, I forget what I would tell you. Instead, I start doing what you're doing, and then I'm like, hold on a minute, what's happened? So let me be the reason why you need to do as I say, and I need to do as I say. I'm the first one to admit it. All right, there's our numbers, 3,800 on the reads, 3,700 on the writes. Now, to give you some perspective, when we were installing Generation 3 NVMe drives, The highest number we would see on an internal M.2 NVMe drive would be 3,500, and that's on the good Samsung 970 EVO that I love so much. I've installed at least 100 of those. I don't think I've ever had one fail, but regardless, very happy to see 3,500, 3,600, 3,400 to 3,600. Now we can go external at 3,800, which is insanity. So this drive, in theory, this drive could be faster than the drive you have in your computer now. And therefore, your speeds might be slower because your internal drive can't keep up. How insane is that? So the Zyke drive is working as it should, and I'm in the USB port on the Minisforum UM760 Slim is working exactly like it should. So that's great news. The other thing that I did not realize at the time when I reviewed this, remember, there's no rehearsal, there's no script. I didn't realize this had two Gen 4 M.2 slots in it, the UM760 Slim. As a budget mid-range PC, why? And if it does, then why raid them? Why? Minisforum has this fantastic gaming platform called the G7 PT that we reviewed here. It has two USB ports, or three, and it says it supports RAID in all their advertising, but it doesn't. It's not in the BIOS. Minisforum assured me there will be a BIOS coming out to enable that. They continue to advertise it as having RAID, and to this day, long after it's been for sale, there's still no BIOS update to enable that RAID. And that's a very expensive computer. That's like 3 times the cost of this. I don't know what's going on over there. I don't know if Minisforum has different departments. If you don't want to support the RAID, then just don't say it has it. If you're going to tell me it has it, and it just needs a BIOS update, and I got an early model, I understand. But once it's been available for sale to the public for a month or 2 months, if you pick a lane, if you're gonna, don't tell me it supports RAID and all it needs is a BIOS update and then not perform or offer the BIOS update. Shouldn't even have been sold that way. Minisforum is not a perfect company. They make mistakes. They dropped the ball. I think they dropped the ball on the G7 PT. If you want that for RAID, it isn't going to work. So, if they haven't released the BIOS update for RAID by now, I don't think we're ever going to see it. But I hope I'm wrong. With that done, I want to try the RAID out on this. So to do a RAID 0, which is where we take 2 drives and we pair them together in the BIOS. So we take two 2 terabyte Gen 4 drives in this case and create one 4 terabyte drive that runs at twice the speed. The downside is it's still a Ryzen 5 processor. Not exactly sure why you would need that speed. You're going to generate more heat because these drives run hotter. And if either drive should fail, you lose the data as though the one drive failed. In other words, these 2 drives acting together act as one. And if one or the other were to fail, the whole thing collapses and your data is gone. So backups are critical. And if you ever need to boot from a repair disk, you need to put the RAID driver on, or the repair disk won't even see your C drive because your C drive is made up of 2 separate drives that are put together in the BIOS that require a non-standard driver. Windows won't see it without that driver. You can't install Windows without that driver. You can't repair Windows without that driver. It is a massive pain in the butt. One of the ways you get around this pain in the butt is go to the next generation of drive. 2 of these Gen 4 drives run as fast as one Gen 5 drive. And 2 of these cost more. On the other hand, this unit does not support Gen 5. So, you're not going to get it that way. On the other hand, this is still a Ryzen 5, and putting Gen 5 in it, even if you could, doesn't really make any sense. Because your bottleneck is not your I/O. Your bottleneck is the CPU. And it's not a big bottleneck, but it's enough of one where this is more of an enthusiast or workstation, high-performing, Ryzen 7, Ryzen 9 kind of offering. This is just a Ryzen 5, which is middle of the road. It makes no sense to me why this would have RAID. I understand why it has 2 M.2s, but again, to offer the RAID there and not put it into what you said you were going to do, you being Minisforum on the G7 PT, makes my head explode, because that G7 PT could really utilize it. This isn't really going to. I'm only doing it because we can. This makes no sense. I don't recommend this unless you just like it for fun. And if you're going to do that, make sure you make a special boot disk with the RAID driver on it. I don't even know where we're going to find the RAID driver for this. I don't know. I suppose one thing we can check is what AMD chipset we're running. Oh, look, we got updates. Full screen over here. Let's go ahead and restart. When this comes back up, we're going to check CPU-Z and see what AMD chipset we've got. Because if Minisforum isn't providing us with the boot up RAID driver that we need, we can probably just download the one directly from AMD that matches this chipset. That's my guess. But I'm speculating here, so we'll see what happens. Let me look in the chat and see what you guys are saying while we're waiting. Mike Quinton says, what's the difference between RAID, just a bunch of disks, basically for backup, or just storing stuff? RAID is a redundant array. So redundant meaning there's extra, right? Redundant, extra. Redundant array. So an array is multiple drives paired all together as one. Of independent disks. Redundant array of independent disks. Some people say inexpensive disks, but I guess that depends how much money you have. Inexpensive is subjective. Independent is objective. So in my opinion, RAID, the actual definition should not be redundant array of inexpensive disks, because they might be very expensive disks. But they're always going to be independent disks that can operate on their own. And what we're doing, it's like you have a light bulb and you put a light bulb in and your room is so bright, and you add a second light bulb and your brightness of the room doubles if both light bulbs are the same wattage. You add a third light bulb, the room gets brighter. The only downside is if one of those light bulbs burns out, all the lights go out. And you have to, even though the other two bulbs are still good, they won't work. And because these light bulbs in this example are holding your data, and every light bulb holds a bit of the data, losing one bulb on a RAID 0, meaning there's only two drives. If either drive fails, your data is gone. On a RAID 1, you lose one drive. It's just gone. What it's doing is it's mimicking everything that's happening on your main drive is happening on the duplicate, including getting a virus, getting ransomware, accidentally deleting a file. And if either drive dies, you're still up and running because they're both exactly the same. It's just one is hidden from you. Obviously, they have to be the same size. Then you go to RAID 5. Skip RAID 3 and RAID 4 is not what we're talking about. RAID 5 is where you have 3 or more drives, preferably all the same make, model, and size. And you say, I want to use these drives in what we call a RAID 5, I guess it's a striped array. But what we're doing is we're putting a little bit of data on drive 1, a little bit of data on drive 2, and a little bit of data on drive 3 at the same time. So let's say I'm writing a 100 meg file, about 50, well, I'd say about 33% of the 33 gigs of the 30, if it's 100 megs divided by 3, and each drive does a third. And then there's a little overhead. So if any of those drives fail, doesn't matter if it's drive 1, drive 2, or drive 3, doesn't matter. They contain overlapping data of the other two so that the machine continues to run. That's why I like network attached storage. This is only beneficial if a drive should fail or if you need a massive amount of storage. If I need 60 terabytes of storage, they do not make a 60 terabyte drive, not available for consumers that I'm aware of. But I can buy a couple of 24 terabyte drives, put them in a RAID 5. I lose a little bit for that math, the overhead. And then what I'm left with will be, about 60 terabytes or so. But it's just going to look like one big 60 terabyte drive when it's really 3 24 terabyte drives with what we call parity. So it has the ability to fix itself. And you can add 4 drives, 5 drives, 6 drives, 7 drives. You just need a minimum of 3. When you only have 2 drives, you can only do RAID 1 or RAID 0. Again, RAID 0 is striping. It's where both drives do half the work at twice the speed. You're getting 7,000 megabytes per second out of the one, 7,000 megabytes per second out of the other, and each one's doing half of the work. They do it at the same time, which should result in about 14,000 megabytes per second speeds, which again, you could just buy one Gen 5 drive that can do that, or close to it. RAID 0, once again, RAID 1, that's a mirror. That's where you lose one drive, it's hidden. So if one drive fails, the other drive takes over, and you haven't lost anything. The only time RAID helps you is when you need a lot of storage, when you need very fast storage, if you've got a computer that can handle that speed. If you don't, it's pointless. And of course, for the data redundancy, if a drive should fail. It has nothing to do with a backup. It's totally irrelevant to a backup. If you have a 60 terabyte RAID array, you need to figure out how you're going to back up 60 terabytes of data and get it out of the building in case of a fire, a theft, a flood, ransomware, viruses. I mean, there's a million ways to lose your data. So that it can be discouraging to back up that much data. No different than if you have a house full of junk and you can't walk through your house without tripping over yourself. Sometimes you just need to clean house, or you need to buy a storage unit. The more stuff you have, the more it's going to cost you to keep it, the harder it's going to be to find it. And if there's a fire, a flood, or a theft, it's gone forever. So it's really no different. It's just virtual ownership versus, atoms. Anything made from atoms we can hold in our hands. We can't hold software. We can't hold these ones and zeros. We can't hold our pictures. We can't hold the data. It exists only as data, which is not atoms unless we print it out. And we want to take this data, these ones and zeros, we want to copy them somewhere else. So we have a duplicate copy out of the building, and we want to keep that up to date. Because otherwise, if you haven't updated your copies, you might find out that after a disaster that was completely unexpected, you're going to be remiss that you forgot, or you just it's not that important, you keep procrastinating. And then you go to recover the data you did back up, and it's 9 months old, and everything you've added in the last 9 months is forever gone. Forever. Nobody can recreate those photos. That is priceless to you and you alone. So drives like this are great if you want to back up your data and then unplug the drive. Do not keep this plugged in. Make a copy of your data. You do an Acronis image of your computers. Put this away. Keep it off the network. Keep it off the computer. If there's a power spike, it could kill the computer and everything attached to it. If there's a virus, it'll spread to every attached device. Ransomware, all that stuff spreads to every connected device. The only way to keep it safe is disconnect it. But that doesn't help you in a fire or a theft or a hurricane. That has to be out of the building. So it's good to have 2 or 3 backups. One you have locally, so you can have it quickly if you need it, and one you have in case of a complete disaster and total loss. And you can put it up to the cloud, get it out of the building, use Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, AWS, depending on how much data you've got. Acronis allows you to upload to the cloud. It's slower, but it gets it out of the building and you don't have to physically move something somewhere else on a regular basis and keep it updated. So RAID arrays are not for everybody, especially as drive capacities are getting bigger and bigger. I used to use RAID arrays with multiple drives because we needed, say, 20 terabytes. We can now buy one drive that's 20 terabytes. I don't need 5 4 terabyte drives or 4 8 terabyte drives like I used to. I can use a 2 drive NAS now, stick 2 20s in there. I got nearly 40 terabytes of data storage now. So you can use it for capacity, you can use it for speed, or you can use it for redundancy in case of a drive failure, and that's the only disaster it helps you with. That's it. Just that one instance. So the fact that this has a RAID array available in it suggests to me that you'd really want RAID 0 on this. I don't know why someone would put RAID 1 on it, but you could if you wanted to. And you can't use RAID 5 because you only have 2 drives. You need a minimum of 3 for that. So let me look again in the chat before we get started here. Doman 2000 asks, with endless discussions about generational drive speeds, after a certain speed, does it matter much? It depends on who's using it. A lot of times what I see coming from the chat room are individuals who only consider their usage and the usage of their friends and family. They're not considering the usage that might be required from Ford Motor Company developing your next vehicle, from SpaceX doing trajectory projections for the rocket, and all of the all of the complex equations that have to take place very, very quickly on a number of systems simultaneously in order for that rocket to take off and land safely. Now they're at a point where the rocket will do that on its own with its own onboard systems. And obviously those systems have to be able to keep up faster than the rocket is falling. We couldn't have done that in the 60s. Now technology has gotten to a point where it's like car racing. How fast is fast enough in car racing? How much money do you want to spend? We can keep going faster the more money you want to spend, both in car racing and both in performance on a computer. There's really no limit. When you have a major corporation that's in one of those high-rise buildings downtown, and they maybe have other locations all over the world, a company like McDonald's, can you imagine the size of the servers that McDonald's has to provide the data to all their restaurants and collect the data from all their restaurants to determine how their franchises are performing daily by the minute if necessary? That's one company. Think of every company you spend your money on. What keeps your house from being repossessed from the bank? Imagine the servers and the amount of data and input and output the bank has. Imagine if everybody's using Google OneDrive, just that one service, how many hard drives have to be maintained on a daily basis? Thousands and thousands and thousands, maybe 100,000 hard drives in multiple Google data centers that are massive. They cost billions of dollars, and they must be maintained 24/7 with multiple full-time staff 24/7. That's one company. Do they need it? So whether or not you need it is by no means a measure of what anybody else needs. How fast is too fast is really up to the individual to decide for themselves and not for anyone else. When we're talking about the average consumer, regular 550 megabytes per second on SATA 3 is mostly anything bigger than that. Most end consumers don't notice it. It's so minor of a difference, except maybe for gamers and enthusiasts. It doesn't matter. You could go 550, you could go 1500, 3000, 6000, 12,000. The customer doesn't notice at all. It all seems the same to them. People watching YouTube videos about this subject matter probably care about it. The people not here, not watching this, probably don't care or wouldn't notice. So for them, the answer is one. For you, the answer is something else. And for somebody else or a company, the answer is somebody else. And nobody's wrong. Bill Sonit, now a member for 4 months. He says, it's a lot to learn. I only use USB Seagate for my images with Acronis. Thank you, Carey. And that's all you need to do. I don't use RAID myself, except on a Synology or TerraMaster or ASUS store, where those things are designed to use multiple drives. Back in the day, back in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, I did have a RAID configured on my personal desktop. I did lose a drive, and it was a RAID 5 array, so no problem. But you have to take the whole computer apart to get to it. It's a pain in the butt, especially in the 90s or the early 2000s. What I like about Synology and QNAP and others is these are little shoebox-sized devices designed to accept the drives, designed to run in RAID, and they're toolless. You don't need any tools to take. A light comes on, and you normally, like on a Synology, you'll have 4 lights: drive 1, drive 2, drive 3, drive 4, and they should be green and blinking when the drive is active, when it's reading or writing. If the drive fails, the Synology will email you, if configured, which I do, to email me and tell me you have a drive failure on drive 3. So the drive continues to run. The customer continues to go about their daily business. They have no idea anything's wrong. I get the notice. I go to the customer's location, typically after hours, so I don't interfere with their work. I take the drive that's bad out. I can see the green light next to drive 3 is now a red light. And it matches the email that tells me there's a problem with drive 3. Without turning the unit off, I can lift a lever, slide that drive out, take a replacement drive. I always keep a spare on top of the unit for businesses. Take it out of the package, pop it in, no screwdriver required, slide it back in, again, do it all with the power on. And then I log into the Synology as an administrator. I go to my volume and I say, rebuild my RAID, you know, it recognizes the new drive I put in. It'll even ask me, do you want to rebuild your array with this? I click yes, and then it works overnight. And while it's working, even if I did this during business hours, it would not interrupt anybody working. They would never know this was happening. The RAID array continues to deliver and save data back and forth to all of the employees. I prefer to do this at night so I don't interrupt employees or get interrupted from employees asking me a million questions. And it gives the RAID solitary time to rebuild, which obviously will happen faster. That is amazing, but it's only useful on a drive failure. If an employee accidentally clicks a link and infects the entire network, the RAID will be infected. So what we have to do is we have to make backups, and we have to keep the backups disconnected, and we have to update those backups regularly. And that depends on the owner of the company, how much money they want to spend. If you want to update daily, you're going to require 7 times more of my time than if you upgrade weekly, or if you upgrade bi-weekly or once a month. And then the question for the business owner is it cheaper to pay me daily or weekly or monthly for the amount of data it's going to cost you to recreate that you might lose in a worst case scenario? Let's say you're paying me to do it monthly. So once a month I back up your data. Depends on the size of the company. And then on day 29, tragedy strikes, and you've lost 29 days since the last backup. Is it cheaper to just pay your employees to recreate that data? Or is it cheaper to pay me to make the backup more often? That is up to each business owner to decide for themselves, and I try to explain it as clear as possible. I try not to steer the customer one way or another. I have accountants that don't really need backups more than once a month until January, when people start coming in to have their taxes done. So January, February, March, April, they want the backups done weekly. And then when we get down to late March and through mid-April, they want them done daily, because they'll stay till 2 o'clock in the morning doing tax returns for their clients. They do not want to do that all over again. They'd rather just pay me to, keep doing it during this period of time and then go back to monthly after that. That's a very unique situation, but it's always adaptable for every client, and it's for them to decide benefit versus risk versus cost. That's it. So to put a RAID 0 on this, there's going to be no backup. We're essentially the same as having one drive. We have one drive in it now. If this one drive fails, if we don't have a backup, we've lost everything. If we put 2 drives in it and configure them in a RAID 0, it still looks like one drive and behaves like one drive. That's twice as big and twice as fast. If either drive fails, it's no different. We've lost everything. You better have a backup. The only reason to do this is to double our capacity and double our speed. Will we get double the speed? I don't know. That's what we're here to find out today. Hey, Mitch Morrison's joining us. I think, is Mitch in South America now? I think Mitch left yesterday for South America. He's going to be touring the entire continent, as far as I know, he's in Santiago, Chile. Right on. Yeah, he's going to be touring the entire continent for the next 5 weeks is the plan. Thanks for checking in. Hopefully we'll get some video from Mitch saying hello from these exotic locations so we can travel with him vicariously. It's about the only way I go outside. All right, let me stop talking over here and get back to work. We'll go back over to, let's go back over to our desktop here and start prepping this. Now, first of all, I want to disconnect the Zyke drive safely. I want to make sure I don't cause any problem to the NVMe drive. So we'll come down here and click this and eject. Well, it actually sees the Zyke drive as the drive that's installed, as a fanxiang. That's interesting to me. It's taking on the name of what's installed on it, in it. And then let's shut this down. Okay, so that preps us for taking the unit apart. We're going to use the NVMe drive in here and the one in the box I haven't opened. We're going to put them in here. So we're going to open this up for the first time. That requires us to remove the rubber feet. And I make sure everything's unplugged when I do this. So we'll give it a second to shut down. Power light is still on there. Want to wait for that light to turn off. And once that light is off, we're going to unplug everything. I don't know why it's taking so long. Let me switch back over. What is it doing? Oh, it's got another update. Okay, so in the background, Windows updates were running. And now that we've shut it down, it's applying. I'm like, this is taking way too long. But again, it's live and unrehearsed and unscripted, and this is what happens in real life. Mitch Morrison says it's 6 p.m. here in Santiago, 2 o'clock p.m. here in Phoenix. So he's 4 hours ahead of us there. Gratian says hello from Romania. Right on. Welcome from Romania. Is it shut down yet? All right, now we're off. So I'm going to unplug my Zyke drive. We're done testing this. I like that it has this little holder that we can slide this little cable in. See, it only goes in one side, which I don't understand. Turn it around the other way, go in this way. And you got to turn it the right direction. It only goes in one side, one direction. And that way you can take this with you, stick it in a pocket, and go. Let's see, I'm going to open this back up, and we're going to take the source drive out of it. Right-cha. I guess I didn't have it secured in there very well. And then this side goes in first. We close that down, and we are done with this. Yeah, this went with it. You know what? I knew I had a little wire tie left over, and I didn't know what it was for. I think I know what it's for now. Keep that wrapped up. All right, Zyke drive is good. USB4 is good. We're making some progress today. So much better than yesterday. Look, I enjoyed the video yesterday. What I didn't enjoy is I was really getting frustrated at something that should have been simple. And had I been clearer-headed that day, it wouldn't have gone on. It went on way too long. I was trying to make something work stubbornly, and I had the wrong part. And no matter how stubborn and how much you try, if you have the wrong part, you're never going to make it fit. And until you realize that, you're going to be spending potentially a lot of wasted time. And that's what happened to me yesterday. Things just sometimes get a bit chaotic, and such is life. That it doesn't matter how experienced. Sometimes the experience is a bad thing. You get a little too confident. You get a little too cocky, and some basic, someone with basic skills comes along and fixes it in 2 seconds and makes you feel like a complete moron. Well, that's kind of what happened to me. So again, we need these. I need these reminders. This is kick in the pants from time to time, because I've been not paying close enough attention to detail and being more emotional rather than logical about it. So I'm going to keep beating myself up over it until it gets through my thick skull. I hope you're learning vicariously through me. All right, let me get these cables unplugged, especially power. We'll just set those down for now. We've got to remove the rubber feet. Everything we need to access is right through these vent holes here. The Minisforum continues to put these rubber feet on with the screws underneath, and the rubber feet are stuck on with glue. They don't have little edges they slide into. They don't lock in, they're just stuck on. And sometimes that stickiness fades over time and the feet won't stay on. These aren't standard rubber feet you can just go buy at Amazon. They do include 2 extra rubber feet, but in the years ahead. All I'm saying is, if you're going to take this apart, I try to not take it apart too often unless you're ready to give up the rubber feet and just not use them, or go buy some incompatible. In other words, these little square feet fit in little square recesses. You're likely not going to find a replacement for that. But you can go and buy generic rubber feet and stick it around the recesses, which is what Minisforum should have done to begin with, or provided us a hole through the rubber foot to access the screw. That's not rocket science either. And if you can do that yourself once you realize where the screw is. Sometimes it's not directly in the middle. Sometimes it's close to the edge. So I'm going to just peel up one foot here and see where it is. Yeah, it's really close to the edge. So I'll give you an example. That rubber foot came off nice and clean. It's going to go back on perfectly, but they all might not do that. And the older the machine is, the less likely you'll be successful. But notice how the screw is up in the corner. So if we put a hole in the rubber foot right up in the corner, we could probably feel for that. It doesn't even have to be big enough for the screw to come out. As long as the screw loosens up enough that we can take the back off, that's all we need. It might even be beneficial that it would keep the screw captive in there so you wouldn't drop it and lose it. But they want us to remove these feet, and I just grab an edge, pull on it. If you have a spudging tool, that might help. And again, you can tear the sticky substance. If you see the way that that's coming off, sometimes the sticky substance stays stuck to the machine instead of the foot. It's very common. In that case, we got lucky again. And again, screw is in the upper corners, not in the center of the rubber foot. This makes a very easy job a little bit more complicated for apparently no reason whatsoever. It's very easy to fix this issue. And for some reason, Minisforum refuses to fix it. I don't know why. I have not yet seen a content creator not complain in a Minisforum review about the rubber foot issue. We're all pretty much universally on this because it's just a very simple thing to fix. And they just refuse to do it. I don't know why. But with the rubber feet off, now we need a screwdriver to get these 4 screws out. And my standard JIS driver, I think, will be fine here. So the less often you do this, the less likely you are to damage a rubber foot. That's all I'm trying to say. If you're someone that likes to take a computer apart a lot, that might be something you want to resolve yourself early on by drilling holes or moving the... I could put these feet right back on. They're sticky, and I can put them just right next to the hole. It's still going to balance fine. It's going to work fine. It just won't cover the screw up anymore. And it may raise the computer up a millimeter since it won't be in the recess. Who's looking at the bottom? Who cares? It's an easy fix. Move the foot over. Unless your foot doesn't come off right and it tears or the sticky substance won't come off, in which case they do give you 2 spares. But the other solution is stop taking it apart. Like, if you're taking it apart quite often and you're not addressing this, it will need to be addressed at some point. As the machine ages, it's going to be more and more difficult as the glue sets and the rubber becomes more brittle over time. It dries out. That is a long screw. Holy cow. Magnetized screwdrivers are fantastic and completely safe and recommended to use on computers, all computers. We didn't used to recommend magnetic anything because we were using floppy disks and zip drives, and those were all magnetic-based storage. And if you got a magnet next to it, no differently than getting a magnet next to a cassette tape or a VHS tape, you'd erase it or you'd damage the data on it. We don't use magnetic recording anymore, maybe in a hard drive, but you know, a hard drive has a very strong, like rare earth magnet right next to the bladder. But yeah, anyway, what's interesting, again, something I'm noticing different, a lot of times on the bottom with Minisforum in particular, you'll see an arrow that points to the front, and it says front. But this is not the front, this is the back, and that arrow doesn't say front like it does in other units. It says rear. But I like the fact that it's got an arrow. I don't care what direction it's facing, because quite often when I take this apart live on camera, I'm so interested and so focused on talking to you, I forget which way I took the bottom off. So it's nice to know when we put this on, it's giving us some direction that this end of the plate we're removing goes towards the rear. That's easy to tell. Now something's holding us in here, and I'm going to try. Caution, disconnect internal cables first when lifting the lid. How can I get to the internal cables without lifting the lid? That doesn't make any sense. I think what they mean is, as you're lifting the lid, be cautious of the cables that are connected to the lid. Don't just yank the lid off, you'll rip the cables out. So be very cautious. We're unclipping it and raising it slowly. And it looks like the only cable we've got running here is there's two heat sinks for NVMe drives. Yep. And then we've got a fan that's connected right behind the power input. I don't know how well you guys can see that. Let me see if I can bring it up and show you. It's important you remember where this connector goes back. So that wire right there is hooked to the fan, the cooling fan. And that wire plugs in. See where it plugs in? Right down there by see the input for the power? Right there? You can see behind it. So we're going to disconnect that. We just have to remember where to put it back. And you'll notice the lid, which once I disconnect this I can show you better. It's important we put the lid on the right direction so those heat thermal pads will fit over our NVMe drives. If we put it on any other way, it's not going to align and you're going to struggle. So to remove this cable, most people are going to use their fingers and they're going to pull on the cable to disconnect it. That's a great way to rip the cable from the connector. You really want to use something to grab the connector. I'm going to be really gentle and wiggle and pull at the same time. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to use like a precision screwdriver, flat blade, or small tweezers and get up underneath this connector. Let me show you the connector close up. It's fragile. And the way I did it can result in two different kinds of failures. When I just grab this cable and yank on it, what I was doing was wiggling and pulling gently. But I can rip the wires right out of the connector. And if the socket that this is plugged into is not soldered well onto the board, I can pull the whole socket off the board with it. Whoopsie. But if you use a small tool to get up underneath the lip on that connector, then you put all your pressure on the connector, separating it from where it's plugged in, and you'll disconnect it perfectly every time. The way I did it is not recommended. You can do that if you want, but you also accept the risk of what could happen. Now, let's bring this up without the lid, and I'll give you a close-up of what we got in here. We have 2 sticks of crucial, I believe that's DDR5 RAM in there, dual channel. We've got our CMOS battery right there. We've got a blank M.2 NVMe slot here, and then that's the 1 terabyte Kingston NVMe drive it came with. Where's our Wi-Fi at? Oh, the Wi-Fi adapter and many of these mini PCs is located underneath the NVMe drive. Some are soldered in, but most you can replace. So if there's Wi-Fi 8, Wi-Fi 9, in theory, you could take the Wi-Fi adapter out. Let me show you. Right now, I think it's 6E, which is pretty darn fast. Most people don't even have 6E routers. Not in October of 2024. But I'm going to show you. We're going to take this NVMe drive out, and I'm going to leave all the data that's on it. We're going to just leave it as is. Don't want to lose that little screw. And we're going to set that aside. That's the original, untouched, with Windows, everything you saw me boot to. Leave that off over there. And now that exposes our standard M2 Wi-Fi adapter, which is underneath of it right there. Same thing, one screw, but there's two antenna wires that unbutton from it. Again, you got to be careful when you take those off. Well, you can watch other videos on how to do that. For right now, and for the next couple of years, that's probably fine. Probably fine forever. But if there's a Wi-Fi 8, Wi-Fi 9, that's how you can upgrade it to that if you wanted to. As long as the plug standard doesn't change. Now, what I want to do to enable a RAID 0 array on this, or a RAID 1, is I need to install two drives, preferably of the same speed and capacity, all right? If one is smaller or slower, then the whole array is the smallest size and the slowest speed times 2. So if you want the RAID to be optimal, you will use the same exact make, model, and size of drive of any RAID array. If you don't, whatever is the slowest and smallest is what is replicated, and everything else is just wasted. You can't use it. So I'm going to put this drive over in this slot here where I just took one out. I put it in the wrong slot, which I have not yet removed the securing screw yet. So let's get rid of this one, this little screw. I don't want to lose it. So we'll put that one in first. Don't over tighten, just to it snug. I have another brand new fanxiang 2 terabyte Gen 4 drive. And I have a razor to cut the tape on this. William Lynn says the new Windows 24H2 update has uncleanable Windows update files. We've already discussed this in past videos, William. I'm sorry you didn't see it. There's a great article that was linked to a couple of videos ago, but if you Google search Windows Cleanup 24H2, I think you'll find multiple articles. This is a bug. It's not even really using 9 gigs. There will be an update for it coming soon. Don't freak out. Just ignore it for now. It's not real. It's actually not. It's all explained in the articles. We did discuss this in the past. I'm not going to go back over it, but there are articles written, if you Google search it, that explain why this happened. All right, let's see. Zvi Manor mentions error 8007. We've already addressed that in a dedicated video. Again, if you simply look at the library here from the last 10 days, you will find all the solutions for this stuff discussed already. So I'm sorry you guys are coming in and missing all the other content. I understand everybody can't see every video, but they're titled pretty clear. I don't know. It's there. If you look for it, you'll see it right here on the channel. All right, let's go back to putting this other drive in now. And this is brand new. We're going to place it right here in the other slot. Go right there. And we'll bring it down. Zvi Manor mentioned something about Home Edition. I've got Home Edition. I haven't had the problem, but if I did, the solution is the same, only you'll use a PowerShell command to fix it. I can't replicate that on the Home Edition. When I installed 24H2, this is to Zvi Manor mentioning this error on network shares. The only computer I did not have the problem on was my Galaxy Book 3 from Samsung, which has Windows 11 Home. And when I went to 24H2, my network was not obstructed in any way, only on the Windows 11 Pro. With Windows 11 Pro, you use your policy editor. Windows Home does not have a policy editor. In that case, it's a PowerShell command. I don't know if we covered the PowerShell command, but we did. If you would read the links in the video description, It explains how to fix this for home edition if you should experience it. It's so frustrating for me. It's so frustrating that people come in without, I mean, this is just content I made a few days ago. So we hope you watch more of the content, or at least take your time to look at what you've missed, because I think a lot of things you're seeing now, we've already seen and addressed. So we are trying to help everybody without having to constantly repeat ourselves. Thank goodness for the videos. You can play the video 1,000 times. I don't have to repeat it 1,000 times. So just trying to help you help yourself, that's all. Now, we're gonna plug the fan back in with the drives in now. We definitely wanna keep those bad boys cool. We wanna make sure that the arrow pointing to the rear is gonna point to the rear. And we've gotta plug the fan on right here. By the way, I'm talking with Nick over at D7X Tech to make us a Windows 11 tool to maybe check to see if recall is enabled and allow you to disable it, to see if these settings with regards to guest fallback and SMB signing are turned on or turned off, and put it in one easy interface. We're also coming up with a few other controversial or common issues that people may have in Windows 11, so that the tool can be more useful than just those three things. So if you have ideas for us with regards to configuring Windows 11, we'd love to hear your ideas. But it has to be something that would affect a lot of people, not just uniquely you, but something a lot of people would want to do, such as, you know, access their network shares and know if recall is turned on or turned off and decide which way they want it, if for no other reason than saving hard drive space and resources. Okay, let's see if we can get this little connector back on, and I can't tell, does it go on this way or do I turn it around and go the other way? Yeah, it's got to go on that way. Delicate little work. Be very careful. Putting it on is a lot safer than taking it off. As long as you've got it lined up, you'll push down, you'll hear it click. But don't force it if it's not going in. It can be a little tricky on the eye to see if it's lined up or not. And the magnification on these glasses is pretty low. When I do detailed work like this, I like to have a higher magnification glasses. These are, I think, 3x or 3.5. It's almost like having a magnifying glass close to your eye. And when I put them on, anything more than a foot away is blurry and makes me feel nauseous. So I try to only use these at close-up work, and as soon as I look away, there's the nausea. Take them off. But it's handy to not have to hold a magnifying glass. Okay, see, I even had trouble seeing this. Everything's warped in my peripheral vision. It's really annoying to get older. Can I just say? You go back and watch my videos from 10 years ago, and you'll never see a pair of glasses on my face. I really wish this cable was a little bit longer. Come on now. Got it going in the wrong way. Let's go this way. I'm sure if I was 10 years younger, I would have had this done 10 minutes ago. Now, the rear arrow pointing to the rear, which is this way. Now, I will click this back down, I think. I feel like I guess I have to screw it down for those heat sinks to rest on top of the drives. So I'm not going to put the feet back on because I'm going to take this all back apart. I'm not going to leave it with a 4 terabyte RAID 0 on this. Gen 4, 2 terabytes each, times 2, 4 terabytes. Rubber feet are sticking. Stop it. Stay. So I want to screw this, I don't want to screw this down, but I have to make sure that our thermal pads are attached to the top of our NVMe drives and doing their proper thermal transfer. My initial instinct was let's just put the bottom back on, but that in this case would not be wise. But I can leave the rubber feet off because I know I'm going to be taking this apart again, and that's really the part I'm worried about ruining. Again, don't over tighten. As soon as the screws give you resistance, stop. This is plastic, and thankfully these screws have a very long shoulder. The only part that threads is that last 1/4 inch of the screw. So it's not like you're turning the entire length of the screw for half an hour. Okay. Now we're going to plug it all back in. I don't want Ethernet. What I want to do is I want to plug in power. My keyboard and mouse I left plugged in. I need to plug in HDMI so we can see what's going on. I guess I'm going to have to give myself a little more slack here so the power cable doesn't pull itself off the table like it did last time. And then, let's see, HDMI. And then we need our Windows 11 installation media. We're going to do this completely clean. But, and here, this is kind of an issue. We're going to need a RAID driver. Let me show you what happens. It's not going to see this drive, I'm predicting, without a driver. It, being the Windows 11 installer, is going to say, you have no hard drive. What do you mean? I have 2 in there. Well, when we configure them as a RAID, which we've not done yet, it uses a different controller that's not standard. Windows 11, Windows 10, whatever Windows you're installing already has the controller driver everybody's using. That's why you don't need to use your own driver. But the minute you turn it to a RAID array, then you become the opposite of normal and common, whatever that is. It becomes sort of a very uncommon and unique controller that Microsoft does not include in the installer, and you have to provide it. And until you provide it, it won't see your storage as it's configured as a RAID. Because we've not configured it as a RAID in the BIOS yet, if we try to install Windows now, it'll see 2 separate fanxiang 2 terabyte drives and say, do you want to install in drive 1 or do you want to install in drive 2? I don't know which one's drive 1 or drive 2. So if I had data on one that I was trying to be very cautious of not losing, and I had data on the other one I didn't care about, I don't know how you'd tell them apart. In that case, I would leave one drive out, then install my Windows. After Windows installs, unplug everything, put the second drive back in, or third or fourth or fifth, so I don't accidentally overwrite a drive I didn't mean to. But we're configuring a RAID, which means we're going to erase both drives. Data's going to be gone and wiped, and we're going to trick the computer into thinking those 2 drives are one double-sized, double-speed drive. To do that, we have to turn the BIOS on in the RAID. We have to turn the RAID on in the BIOS. So let's turn this on, and we're going to go to, what's the matter? I didn't plug, so I plugged the adapter in, but apparently my plug on the other end of this adapter fell out. So let me plug it into power, because we're going to need to do that. I need my Windows 11 installer. Not yet, but it's going to come up next. So this is my Windows 11 24H2 installer. And we're going to go over to camera 2. In fact, I'm going to turn off camera 1 here. Let's turn on the Mini PC right now. And then when the Minisforum logo appears, we're going to start pressing the delete button on the keyboard over and over again. I guess it doesn't matter. I didn't think that one through. It has nothing to boot to. It has no choice but to come into the BIOS. Once we're in the BIOS, we want to choose Setup right here. And then we're going to go to Advanced. And somewhere in here, not under Trusted Computing, it's not under CPU, Configuration, Onboard Devices, RAID, Enabled. Now, it doesn't ask us what kind of RAID we want. So what I'm guessing we have to do is save and exit I'm just using the keyboard. Press enter, save changes and exit. And then one more time, it's going to reboot now with RAID enabled and hopefully give us a new menu, a sub menu that wants to know if we want RAID 1 or RAID 0, I think. It's been a long time since I've done this. And I didn't push any buttons this time. I didn't have to press delete. There's still nothing for the machine to boot to. We've not plugged our USB Windows 11 installer, because otherwise it would start booting to that. We're not ready to boot until we have the RAID configured first. So back to setup, back to advanced. Where's my advanced? I guess I have to use the mouse. Advanced. Come on, Carey. And then back to onboard device settings. NVMe RAID is enabled. Usually you get a sub menu when you reboot that says, do you want RAID 1 or RAID 0? Here it says you can enable or disable NVMe RAID. Please setting PCIe graphics lanes configuration item according to the RAID. PCIe graphics. PCIe graphics. Where is that? Let's go back. That's not it. Not graphics configurations. Primary, external. Yeah, that's fine. We want. You can do a primary video adapter being external, but we're not using external graphics on this via like USB4. Let's say you could go to a GPU dock if you wanted to. I don't see anywhere where we set the RAID configuration in here. As I mentioned, sometimes, most of the time, once you enable RAID and reboot, you'll get a submenu for what type of RAID you want. I'm not seeing that anywhere in here. It doesn't mean it's not in here. It just means I'm not seeing it. I didn't see anything about the PCIe mode. NVMe RAID enabled. Enable or disable NVMe RAID. Please set the PCIe graphics lanes configuration. Where is the lanes configuration? That's not offering it to us. PCIe port. No, that's where I just was. Resize bar. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. So I don't know where. Oh, look at that. I didn't realize. I thought this was the bottom of the page. You got to keep going lower, because if you notice, there is an elevator bar right here. I didn't notice it. And yes, this is what I've been looking for. It's hidden, sort of. RAID Expert 2 configuration utility is what I've been looking for this whole time. Press enter, and it's saying you've got two NVMe controllers with 2 drives, controller management and array management. So the controller turns it on or off, and the array is how we want to configure RAID 0 or RAID 1. That is the array. An array is referring to multiple drives. If it was one drive, it would not be an array. You must have more than one drive to have. It's the plural version of multiple drives connected together, relying on one another. And we can scroll down further, by the way. Got to watch that elevator bar, Carey. And then physical disk management, which should tell us the properties of each drive. View physical disk properties. Here we go. There's disk 1. There's disk 2. All right, that's just data. There's nothing to change. This is just reporting what it sees. Physical disk operations, initialize it. We don't need to do this. Well, maybe. Let's try. Let's go to array management, manage array properties. You could also delete the array. If you want to reuse the drives individually, they may keep the array data regardless, and it may still see it as part of a RAID array, even in a different computer. And it can be very difficult to figure out how to remove that setting. But if you delete the array in the BIOS, then the drive resets back to normal. So we're setting up an array, so manage it. Okay, that's all well and good. Is drive 1 and drive 2. View associated physical disks. Well, we want disk 1 and disk 2. You'll notice disk 2 is not available. We just see disk 1. So If we go back to that area that I mentioned, manage array properties, back to down here, it said view associated disks. How do I get over there? Okay. And it only sees disk 1 because we've already formatted it. So apparently it wants the drive formatted. Let's go back, scroll down. Let's go back again, one more time, to the main menu again here. Remember, we're back under RAID Expert 2 configuration. That's where we started. We're going to go to Physical Disk Management. Click on that. And then select Physical Disk Operations. So we're going to use disk 1. We'll say initialize it. There are no disks that can be converted to RAID. Let's go to disk 2. Initialize. There are no disks that can be converted to RAID. We're missing something here. View physical disk properties. Yeah, again, there's nothing for us to change. This is just a report. Select physical disk operations. So what we're looking for is the ability to assign the drives. Just because you have the drives installed in your computer, they don't default to all being in the array. If I have 5 drives in here and I only want 2 or 3 of them in the array, and I want to boot from a non-RAID drive for all the reasons I don't need the driver to boot, that's a great idea, and you can tell the computer which drives you want in the array. It doesn't make an assumption. Even though we've only got 2 drives, they don't make the assumption it's always the same. It's sort of like an elevator that only, in a building that only has 2 floors, when you step in an elevator on floor 1, it says, where do you want to go, floor 1 or floor 2? Well, there's only 2 floors. I want to be on the other floor. Just give me a button that says go or a button that says other floor. But the bureaucracy says you must have buttons for each floor, regardless if there's only 2 floors. Well, in this way, even though we only have 2 disks, we still have to select which disks we want in the array, which is kind of dumb. But it works the same. They don't rewrite the code because you only have 2 disks. So I just have to figure out where in here I select. It should be under Manage Array Properties, Array 1 and Array 2. That's the problem. Let's just delete the array. So let's say we check this box. We can't check that one. And we'll just, oh yeah, they're both checked. Even though there's not an array, we're going to delete them anyway. That wipes out all of the data. It says this could take up to 15 seconds. Yes, that's fine. It says there's no arrays found. Good. I was puzzled by that. RAID Expert, let's go back down in here one more time. NVMe controllers 2, controller management, view controller, select controller, okay. Really nothing we need to do here. That looks fine. We don't need to rescan, everything looks correct. Let's go back one more. Physical disk management. Physical disk properties, operations, and hot spares. I don't know what operations does. Initialize. Eligible physical disk for conversion. This one and this one. Okay, initializes. I guess we need to do that. Converting the disk may take 15 to 30 seconds. That's fine. That was awfully quick. Now that they're initialized, can we go back again, go to array management and see if they're there. Create an array. Now we see it. Okay, so select RAID level. We want RAID 0 or RAID 1. RAID 0 is fast, twice the size. RAID 1 is half the size, but the second drive is hidden and mirrors everything the first drive does. So if a drive should fail on RAID 1, you have a fallback drive that is exactly identical at all times, but otherwise that 2 terabyte drive is hidden. Under RAID 1, with the 2 terabyte drives, what we see is a single C drive of 2 terabytes, and everything we write and delete from that drive is happening in the background on the second drive that we don't see. But if the second drive or the first drive fails, we haven't lost anything. That's not a backup, but it is a failure recovery only in the case of a drive failure. It will not help you in the case of ransomware, viruses, accidental deletions and temp files. Everything is exactly the same in a RAID 1. I want to combine the capacity of the drives and the speed of the drives in a RAID 0 array. That's the difference. And then RAID 5 is if you have 3 or more drives. So we won't talk about that. Now we got to select which drives do we want. We want this one, but just say check all and apply changes. Now it says, how big do you want the array? We don't have to use the full capacity of the drives. We can make multiple arrays. I think it's stupid, but you can do that. We're going to use the full capacity, which is what it's defaulted, in megabytes. The select cache size, you can play around with this. It's already selected the biggest possible number. You can have a read cache and a write back cache. I would leave all of this at the default and create the array. Now we should have array 1, array 1 tells us it's RAID 0, 3.9 terabytes. So that's 2 terabytes times 2. And there's our capacity. Is it hidden? No. Everything looks great. We are ready to save and exit. Now what we've told the computer is to treat those 2 2-terabyte drives as one big 4-terabyte drive. If either drive fails, it's data gone. So it's important to make your backups. We still don't have anything to boot from. So we're going to need to use our Windows 11 installation media. Otherwise, we just end up back in the BIOS again. Yes, we've configured the array, but we haven't put anything on it yet. So while we're back at the BIOS screen, I'm going to grab my Windows 11 installation media, which we made a video showing you how to do. And we'll plug it in right up front here. We have a USB 3 port. Give that a second to initialize and then go to boot. And hopefully this time it realizes the only thing it has to boot from is the USB 11 installation flash drive I just plugged in. This is Windows 11 24H2, so the install may look a little different to you. But watch what happens without a driver. I click Next, and I click Next, and I click Install Windows 11. And I agree everything will be deleted. This is a weird install. Getting a few things ready. But now when it looks to where to install Windows 11, it's probably going to say, you've got no drive. Let's see. It's searching for the disks now, and it probably won't find them. Oh, this is interesting. It is finding the individual drives not paired together in an array. We should see one 4-terabyte drive. Partition 1. That's our installation media. That's our USB right there. 16 gig USB drive that has 9 gig free because the Windows 11 install is 5.5 gigs. You obviously can't install on your Windows 11 installation. I don't know why that comes up as an option. So disk 2 is obviously our USB, and disk 1 is just a 1.8 terabyte, not a 4-terabyte drive. But if you notice, it says Windows 11 can't be installed on disk 0 partition 1. All right. But up here, a feature we don't really talk about often on our installs because we don't need it. When you use a RAID array, you need a RAID driver for Windows to see it. That's what that button's for, to install a driver so it can now see your RAID array. And it's different. There's many different controllers from many different manufacturers, and Windows 11, as far as I know, does not include any of those. In every single case of using a RAID, you must install the driver. This is why you don't want your main boot drive to be a RAID array, because if you have any problems with it, you cannot run a rescue disk without first injecting the driver into the rescue disk. That gets pretty technical, not an easy thing. But if you have 3 drives and you make your C drive all alone bootable and make your D and E paired together as a RAID storage for data transfer really quick, then you can always boot to it easily like any other Windows. But the minute you make your bootable Windows a RAID array, you've complicated your life. And if you like that, that's great. Just be prepared and understand what you're doing in exchange for the double capacity and double the speed. Now the question is, where do we get this driver from? Where does this RAID driver come from? Well, the RAID driver comes from the manufacturer. So we're going to have to go to Minisforum support website and see if we can locate a driver. So if I go over to Minisforum support And I'll share the screen with you here. Here we go. And we look for the UM760 Slim. Wrong mouse. I got to use this mouse. Search. There it is right there. And we want, okay, these are all the specs, right? We don't need the specs. We need the downloads. Right here. Downloads. Drivers and tools. Windows drivers, Ubuntu drivers, BIOS. There's no BIOS update. I'm not using Ubuntu. I don't know what the PD, what is a PD tool? I don't know what the PD tool is. And then you've got a BIOS section here, which I guess is the same as what's over here. And of course the user manual, which I don't read. That might tell us how to do this instead of me trying to figure it out, but I prefer to figure it out because they're all mostly the same. It's just how they present it. So we're going to download that. Now, much like a cooking show, since this is 1.1 gig, I have already downloaded this file and extracted it and placed it on this USB right here. I'm going to find, I don't know if the RAID driver we need is on here or not. I have no idea. I'll find a USB port back here and plug this in. And then we'll go back over to camera 2 and turn off my window capture. Let's see, let's see, where's camera 2? Right there. Now, once you go through all this work of getting it set up, I strongly recommend you make a backup image of it with Acronis, but it won't be able to restore your array without injecting the driver also into Acronis, or it won't see the array to restore it. That's why you don't want to make an array a bootable drive. I can't keep emphasizing it, but we're going to do it anyway. Let's see if we can browse. What did I plug in? I think I plugged this in. Maybe just search that whole thing. I don't know. It's not finding. How do I browse? I know I extracted this. There's our driver. Okay, we're looking for a RAID driver, which may be part of the chipset. I don't know. You can see it's not finding. No drivers were found. It's not finding it. It's obviously going to be something AMD. But the question is it included? AMD chipset, AMD drivers? Is it going to find it in there? Nope. Let's keep looking. Go back to that flash drive that we installed on. This is the folder we extracted that zip file to, which is another subfolder within it. And then AMD graphics is obviously not going to be in AMD graphics. Where is it? It's not finding it. That's what I was concerned about. You know, when I download the driver and I kind of glanced at it, I'm like, where are the RAID drivers? Do I have to expand all this first? So I know one of the things I wanted to do before we started the drive replacement, and I forgot to do it, was to go into CPU-Z and see what chipset we're using so that we can go to AMD's driver source directly and download the RAID driver from AMD. I don't know where they hid this or if they've left it out. Is it an oversight from Minisforum that they left it out? What we see in the drivers from Minisforum are the Intel Bluetooth and Wi-Fi drivers. These are the MediaTek Bluetooth and Wi-Fi drivers, depending on which Wi-Fi card you got. This is our Realtek Audio and Realtek Audio app. So we have our AMD graphics up here. Whatever this is, an AMD chipset. Now the AMD chipset is probably what we want, but the reason this folder won't open is there's simply an executable file in it that you have to run and install. If the RAID drivers are in that executable file, that doesn't help us until after Windows is installed. We need the driver now to install Windows. It's just not going to see a location without that driver. So let me go back over to camera 1 and let me head over to our chat room. I've been ignoring the chat room because I've been focusing on this, so I've missed everything you've been talking about. So here's the question for those of you in the chat room. Do you know what chipset, what AMD chipset the UM760 Slim runs on? We can look at the product specs. The other thing I can do is I can go to AMD's website. Or actually, I can just Google AMD RAID driver. And it says AMD RAID software release notes. I got to accept the cookies. Now, this will probably cover a number of different chipsets. I'm guessing right now. But as a tech, if I'm in the field and I need to do this for a customer, I've got to move quick. I'm not going to sit down and read and have the customer go, what the hell are you doing reading on the clock? Let's go, and bang. I try to replicate the business model, which is you get in there, you get the job done, and then the next computer you work on will be something completely different you've never seen before, unless you work in a corporation where all the hardware is the same, and then you don't know anything else but the corporation's hardware because that's all you do, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, month after month after month. And then when you have your own computer, it's a complete puzzle because you're so accustomed to working on very specific hardware. So there are two very different jobs, to be a field service tech to being a corporate IT. Neither one's bad, it's just different skill set. Corporate IT, everything's always going to be the same. You're going to always know what you're doing. As soon as you memorize it, it's always the same across the board. Field services, you work on whatever rolls in and you figure it out. You do it quick. Customer wants it done yesterday and they want it done cheap, and they don't want to see how the sausage is made. And you shouldn't be Googling in front of a customer. You should not be reading books and manuals in front of the customer. Excuse yourself if you need to do that. Go do it privately. It takes away the professionalism. Now, in that regard, let me go over to my window capture again. And what I've done is I went to Google and I simply typed in AMD RAID driver. And this is what came up. AMD RAID software release, blah, 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 known issues, blah, blah, blah. It supports all of these chipsets. We're probably in one of these chipsets, I would guess. All of these processors, yes, notes, package contents. We don't want the utility and we don't want the guide. We want the driver, okay? Configurations, system on a chip, blah, blah, blah. Where's my download? It should be a download in here somewhere. RAID Expert 2, that's what we saw in the BIOS, all right? They talk about how to use RAID Expert 2. This is an AMD thing, it's not a Minisforum thing. And what we want to do is look for the download to this driver, which I probably passed. These are the release notes. Where's the driver? Release highlights, supported chipset, packages, yes, yes, yes. GUI mode, silent mode, attended mode, unattended mode. So apparently my Google search took me to the release notes of the driver, but not to the driver. AMD RAID software. So somewhere, product solution shop, I don't want that. Let's go back one. Let's just type this. Let's add to our search, driver download. Takes us back to the release notes for some reason. I feel like the link to the release notes should be there by the download, and the link to the download should be in the release notes. They should tie into each other. Kind of looks like they dropped the ball here. To configure RAID modes, see the AMD RAID Expert 2 user guide. Again, we're back from release notes to documentation. We want downloads. And even though I typed driver download, I got release notes and not a download link. So let's see, in the AMD community, someone says I need to download the driver. That's where we're at. And somebody says, go to AMD English support, select your socket, your chipset, and submit. Okay, download drivers, support by product. Graphics processors, is it a chipset? In the, is it AM4 family? I don't know, X570, I'm just guessing. Windows 11 64-bit chipset drivers. RAID installer, finally, that's what I'm looking for. I think they're all the same. That's what I want. Let's download that here to the streamer. And then that download is grabbing right up here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. I'll extract the zip file I'm downloading. And I'm going to copy it to my driver disk that I made, which means I have to plug this into the streamer. All this to get Windows installed. Which again, if I had 3 drives, I would make the first drive just a regular drive so I could put Windows on it without all this nonsense. Once Windows is installed, adding the driver for RAID is very easy, and then formatting it as your D drive that's really fast as a data storage drive makes a lot more sense. In fact, even doing this on a computer that's mid-range doesn't make a whole lot of sense to add all this performance. But because you can, we're going to try it and see what it's like. So let me go back over to my download should be done. Yeah, there it is. Let me open that folder up. Do you want this app to make changes? All right, what's it doing? It's a RAID installer. I don't want the RAID installer. I want the RAID drivers. Did I miss the... This says AMD RAID software. This is the software you load once you have Windows up and running. I need the pre-installation drivers. So now it's trying to put the RAID software on the streamer, which might support RAID, I don't know. It's not what I wanted to do. So it says it's checking my PC's hardware for driver compatibility. Okay, this is not what I wanted. Unable to, okay, so I've got the wrong screen up. Right click on the window capture and change it to the AMD screen here. Setup. So that's what I'm seeing right now. This is not what I wanted. I wanted a small zip file that contained RAID drivers for Windows. That's all I wanted. Let me go back to camera 1, turn that off. But I'm glad it didn't install on the streamer because that's not what I wanted. It says RAID installer. I don't want the RAID installer. I want the RAID drivers. That is frustrating. Let me go back to that. Search for your AMD product. No, it should be, yeah, I'm going to type in RAID drivers. I don't think that's specific enough. Now, let me go back to that conversation those people were having. So, that's not what he wanted. Chipsets, your socket model. Select chipsets, your socket model, and your chipset version. Select chipsets, socket model, AM5 maybe, I don't know, AM4, let's say AM5, X670, just for the hell of it, submit, Windows 11 64-bit, chipset drivers, RAID installer, AMD RAID driver. Okay, now I'm finding something. Now it may be the wrong one. I'm guessing on this. But let me go back to sharing the screen with you with where I'm at. And I don't know why the other chipset did not have the AMD RAID driver. All they had was the RAID installer. That's for after you install Windows. We need just the RAID driver. It should be a very tiny download, like 3.3 megs, super tiny. Will it work on our chipset? I don't know. They're probably all the same, but we're going to extract that we just downloaded, and we're going to copy it over to our flash drive that has the drivers on it. So I'll go back to my downloads. There's my RAID Windows driver. I'm going to right click and choose copy. I'm going to go to my installer flash drive that I plugged into the streamer, which is right here, and I'm going to hit paste. Super tiny. It's so fast to copy that over. You understand why I'm making a video on this, right? It's if you decide this is something you want to do, I want you to be prepared for the steps. Now, I'm going to go get that flash drive out of the streamer. Come on. Those USB ports are tight. I guess I need to use them more. And we're going to plug this somewhere we can find a spot. And give that a second to initialize. And hopefully the Windows update will see it again. Otherwise, we have to reboot. So let's go back over to this machine. And we're going to go to right-click full screen. And then we're going to browse. And we want this drive right here. Does it see the RAID? Yes. That's the folder we just copied over. Windows 11, 64-bit, RAID NVMe. It's one of these three. I don't know which one. We'll try that one. It found it. AMD RAID bottom device. I think we have to add all three of them. Let's browse again. And we'll go to RAID driver. Win 1164, RAID NVMe. Let's do the middle one. Click OK. Nothing. And let's browse to the last one. I'm not quite sure which one we want. Clearly, we don't want the middle one. We might want the first one. What does the third one say? Okay, so obviously, the only one that works for us is the first one. So we'll go select it again. RAID Win 1164. RAID. That's the one, the bottom, whatever that means. Select it, and then click Install. Okay, now it's searching for disk. It should see a RAID 0, one disk of 4 terabytes in size. Let's see. Disk 3, disk 2. So disk 1 is our installer. If it's not seeing it, that means we've got the wrong RAID array. Remember, we're looking for 4 terabytes. We're not, so 9.2 gigs, that's our installer USB. This is likely our driver USB. And disk 3 is our installer. It's only 114, it's a 128 gig flash drive. So that's our driver USB. So what's partition 2? What is this? Oh, it's all part of disk 2 and disk 3. Where the heck did disk 1 go? So clearly that is not the right driver for us. Load driver, accept. Browse to folder with drivers. So this is, I don't know what this one's for, but Windows 11, 64-bit. You just click OK on that. Does it find anything? No, you've got to be specific. It doesn't search like Windows does. You have to specifically point out which driver you want. And for some reason, that one leads to nothing. I swear we had to load 2 of these in the past, but it only loads the one. So it may be that this driver is not compatible with our system. Oh, wait a minute, it found something this time. That's what I want. No, I didn't find it last time. Next, let's see if it finds it now. Come on now, don't make me start over. There's disk 2 and disk 1 again. Don't see a disk 1. One more time. Load the driver. Like I said, I thought we needed to have 2 in there. So we know the 2 that worked, they worked individually, is the first option, this bottom. Click OK. Then we should be able to add the other driver, at the same time. At least that's how it's been for me in the past. I don't do this very often, but oh, it's giving us one or the other. Interesting. The only thing I can conclude is we picked the wrong driver. It shouldn't be this difficult. Error installing driver. Interesting. Browse. Install. Error installing driver. So now we're getting the error over and over again. Okay, I think I've downloaded the wrong driver, but I've not been paying attention to the chat room. It might be shouting in there. Somebody who's knowledgeable with this, knowing exactly what I'm doing wrong. So let me go jump back over to camera 1 here so I can look in the chat room and see if anybody's yelling at me. Web Yankee says my mini PC with Windows 11 Pro crashes often. Why? I need to know what the crash is. What is the error message that you're getting and when does it happen? And we can help you from there. William Lynn wants to know if we're liking our TP-Link Deco Wi-Fi set. We love it. It's amazing. Let's see. So the thing is Minisforum should be offering us that RAID driver at the download site, just that small little RAID driver, and it's not there. And it does not appear to be in the Minisforum driver download. I'm gonna let my contact at Minisforum know this. They need to provide it. That's where it should have been. It seems to be missing, but it is an AMD driver, so once we locate the right chipset, we should be able to locate the right driver. John Paul Bacon said it's a Ryzen 5 7640HS chipset. Okay, so if I go back to AMD here, and I go back to their driver download, select chipsets. Is it gonna let me? Let me refresh the AMD driver download. We want chipsets. And is it AM4? Is it AM5? Is it AM4? X570 maybe? We'll submit that. Windows 11 64-bit chipset drivers, RAID installer. No RAID drivers, only a RAID installer. This is frustrating. Even AMD's not providing the RAID drivers. How crazy is that? What about under Windows 10? Does it supply them there? Yes, under Windows 10 it shows AMD RAID drivers. Now, are these the exact same drivers I was just trying to install a minute ago, or are these different? Let's see what the download file says. These are a little different. For 930, what we had before was 932. Let's extract these drivers, but it says it's for Windows 10, not for Windows 11. Weird. Wow. Okay. What are you going to do? So I've extracted that. 930. Right-click and copy. And now I'm going to take my driver flash drive out again, take it over to the streamer. Ideally, you have all this ready before you begin, but I thought I'd do this live because quite often in the real world, when you get support calls and things, this is what you end up with, is a completely foreign situation with a familiar process. It's just the process can vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, or from Intel and AMD, or from who makes the RAID controller. Is it a hardware controller? Is it a software controller? They're mostly the same. It's just a matter of determining their idiosyncrasies. And in this case, the driver should be a very basic thing that's easy to find. Because it's a mini PC, I guess, it complicates matters. It doesn't even make sense to do this on a mini PC of this lack of power that it has. It's not budget, but it's not high-end, and usually this is reserved for high-end machines. Seems a little silly, but I just wanted to do it just because. And now here we are, you know, in this tangled mess trying to sort it out. But let me just continue on with where I was, which was to take that driver and now put it onto our driver flash drive. We'll paste that in there. It's very tiny. It just takes a second to copy it. But without it, there's no going any further. And it's got to be the right one. And it does concern me that this driver is for Windows 10 and not for Windows 11. And I just don't know why, especially if the machine ships with Windows 11. Plug that back in. And we're going to go back over to camera 2. Right click, full screen. And I'm going to go back. It's not going to find it. Wait a minute. Now it says disk 0, 3.6 terabytes unallocated. That's what I've been looking for this whole time. That's weird. Why did it not appear before? Well, that's the drive we want. These are the two drives, 2 terabyte drives combined for a total of 3.6. They are empty. Now I can install to it. Holy moly. So I did have the right driver, but for some reason I needed to go back. I don't know what I did differently. It's something that you learn through repeated processes. I can refine this. So we're quite a bit rough around the edges here. But now it's installing as it normally would on a single C drive, right? But now we've got 2 drives working together as one and tricking the computer into thinking we don't have 2 drives, we really just have one. But what's happening internally inside of the BIOS and inside of the chipset is anytime we write to the drives, it's writing to both drives, half of the data on one drive and half of the data on the other drive at the same time, so we get double the speed or close to it. And of course, we get double the capacity. This is a very dangerous kind of a RAID to run, because if either drive fails, you lose the entire array totally. Backups are important, but to restore the backups, you will need that driver on your rescue disk, or it won't see the source or the target drive you want to recover. So if I replace a bad drive in a RAID array that's a RAID 0, I then have to use a rescue disk like Acronis and either load the driver like I just did with the Acronis software. You will see a load driver option, or I inject the driver during the rescue disk creation process that is specific to this machine, so it will see the storage array. Without the driver, it won't see it. I cannot recover the backup. That's what makes it a pain in the butt. But in exchange for the pain in the butt, in theory, you're getting double speed, double capacity. I don't know how much clearer I can make it. Let me jump over here to the chat room and see what you guys are talking about. So apparently I did not need that Windows 10 driver. I never used it. Just pretend that didn't happen. I don't know. It's very strange. Make an ISO. Again, you will not be able to restore the ISO unless you include the driver to see the target drive. The ISO image will contain all the data as though it were one drive. It tricks the computer into thinking you have one drive. And that's all well and good as long as both drives work. But if the drive fails or the BIOS gets reset, you're out of luck. If you have to restore, I mean, it's easy enough to set the BIOS back, everything will work again. But if you have to replace a drive and restore your data, or you have to repair your Windows installation with a rescue disk, some kind of Windows PE disk to do a Windows repair, it will not see your storage drive without that driver. It is a pain in the butt. You will have to make a special bootable drive for emergencies, or at the very least, keep that driver somewhere handy in case of emergencies. Because even restoring the drive from a backup will require that driver, or it won't see anywhere to put the backup. It says, I don't see any storage arrays. Because in the BIOS, you've tricked it into using a RAID controller, It can't see the RAID controller by default. You must provide the driver in order for any recovery software or any repair software to see that RAID array. Otherwise, it's invisible to it. That's why you don't want your RAID array to be your C drive. That's why I don't mind using a RAID array in a NAS. I don't care. I don't mind using a RAID array as a data storage drive, but as a boot drive, using a RAID array is a bad idea. So what we're doing today is simply to show you how it's done, but to recommend if you choose to do it, you're aware of all of these caveats. And if you're okay with that, knock yourself out. If you're not okay with it, don't do this. Okay. Not my choice to make. It's for you, for me to provide you the information and you to make the right decision for you. All right. Fat Tony with a $2 Canadian super chat says, I'm always having good times hanging out with Carey. Thank you, man. I enjoy you being here too. I appreciate your contribution. Let me see if I missed others. I probably missed others, right? Let me go back over to this tab. Once again, thank you to Dustin Fuller, Chris Johnson, Charlie Purdy, and Bill Sony T. All renewed their memberships today. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, for being our sponsors, so we don't have to be beholden to any corporation telling us what we can say or can't say, or reading a script they wrote as though it were my words. I don't want to do that. With you guys as the sponsors of the show, we can keep it real and just talk to each other like we normally do in regular life instead of making a production. Can you imagine if you went out to dinner with me and I made a production out of it? You'd probably never want to go to dinner with me again. Just sit and chat, enjoy each other's company, enjoy the meal. That's what we're doing here. Very different from other tech channels that are essentially, in many cases, when they do reviews, many of the big channels are getting paid for that. And that, to me, is no longer a review. I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong. I have nothing against it. I just want you to be aware of how this stuff is getting paid for. When somebody's making videos on a regular basis, day after day, week after week, month after month, how are they paying for it? It ain't coming from YouTube, I can tell you that. You get a little tiny bit, but unless you're just sitting around reading the news, it's costing money. So a lot of people get compensated by big corporations, and then they can have bigger, fancier studios and employees and editors and writers. And yeah, I never started this to do that, but all the power to them. David Graham with a $2 super chat says, it's alive. It is alive. William Lynn says, Minisforum does not have the RAID driver because the actual AMD drivers page for the Ryzen 5 7640HS does not have a RAID driver or installer. Yeah, but yet Minisforum provides it and it seems to work. In fact, let me refresh this page here and see if it catches me up. My studio has fallen behind on the video. I have not crashed today, which is good. Oh, it's waiting for me, isn't it? I didn't realize it's been waiting. Let me jump back over here. Full screen. And we're going to go United States, yes. US. Again, this is the install of 24H2, so if it looks a little different, that's why. Skip. Oh, this is interesting. It gives you the option to install your Ethernet driver right now. Wow, that's kind of cool, just like we did for the RAID array. Instead of waiting for Windows to load, and then you're like, how do I get my Ethernet driver? And I'm like, hey, you got to go to another computer and download it. Or use a USB Ethernet adapter like I do that has built-in Windows drivers. You can do it here, but we don't want to install our internet right now. We don't want Microsoft to force us to create an online account. If we're not online, obviously, Microsoft says, oh, well, that's not possible. So we're going to leave this out. I'm going to say I don't have internet. And it's going to say, what local account do you want to use? Oh, I'm going to call it user with a blank password, so it just boots to the desktop. And you know what I do here, right? We turn off everything but location. Accept. Okay, that is pretty much wrapping up our Windows 11 installation. You notice it didn't ask us if we wanted Pro or Home. That's because the product key is injected into the BIOS. So whatever the system came with is what we're getting. I think it's Windows 11 Pro. And again, this is a new media that I've downloaded and created, media installation for Windows 11 24H2. So I'm starting with a nice clean build. I'm not downloading and installing 23H2 and then having to upgrade it and then deal with potential upgrade issues. So 24H2 on new installs from this point forward. If you want to learn how to make the bootable media that I'm using right now, I have a video dedicated to that right on this channel. It's just a couple videos down, very easy to find. And as soon as this is done, we can then start installing those drivers that were in the original zip package I downloaded that was 1.1 gig for Minisforum. And then we can run Crystal Disk Mark and we should see twice the speeds we were seeing. Obviously, we're using faster drives than what was included. But now if I look at the size of my C drive, remember I have two drives that are 2 terabytes each. It should just show me one C drive of 4 terabytes. Right under C drive here, right here, right click properties. And there's our one drive that is, well, it shows it's 3.9 gigabytes, which is 3.63 terabytes. Anyway, this is our flash drive and this is our USB flash. This is my driver's flash drive, right? This has our drivers on it. And the one I want is, oh, I see. This is the zip file. Let's view the extensions. Show me file extensions. Okay, that's the zip file. I don't need that. These are our drivers that I downloaded right here. So we're going to take these drivers. Whoops. Let me go back. And we'll just copy them off onto the desktop here. Should only take a second. And while we're waiting, let's take a look at our device manager and see how many drivers are missing. Quite a few. We've got an AMD Radeon driver, it's missing. Now this is the Windows software. This is the thing that's been offering us all along that we didn't need yet. Now we can use it. Got a multimedia controller, our network controller, and then there's some PCIe devices and our SM bus controller. So all of this, in theory, should be in this package. So we're going to copy it locally just to have it. And we'll go through these and install them. We should get our internet back. You'll see I've got the globe down on the right. That's because our network driver is not included in Windows 11 24H2. It's still so new, it did not have time to get certified by Microsoft. So you will have to install that separately. Definitely want to make sure you have another computer handy, or you've done this ahead of time, or you've backed up your drivers. I've got another video that shows you how to back up your own drivers before you begin this process. There's a lot of different ways to solve this. I usually plug in a USB adapter to Ethernet and just use the built-in drivers. If you only have one machine, you use that Ethernet to USB adapter just to get your drivers for your built-in Ethernet adapter. Then you can unplug the USB adapter, stick it in a drawer. But ideally, you have a second computer like we're using the streamer. Let's start with the AMD chipset software, and it's just an executable file. That's all there is. It says it's dangerous. All right, whatever, run it anyway. And off it goes to install your basic AMD chipset software, which is absolutely needed. It's a pretty fast little machine, but it's again, it's not a Ryzen 7, it's not a Ryzen 9. But it's also not a Ryzen 3, okay? It's right in the middle. And the middle these days is pretty darn fast, if you ask me. I've been in this industry a long time. And it wasn't that long ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where this would have considered the high end. Now it's considered the mid-range. Okay, these are all the drivers it's going to install, whatever that means. Let's do it. Once that's done, we can go back in the device manager. Out of curiosity, we could probably watch it live. Right-click, device manager. And as this installs, we might see these items go away. Don't click on anything, or you may prevent the driver from installing. But as you see this flash, it's updating. Like here, it's installing AMD chipset drivers. Something just happened there. Look, that list just got a little shorter. Now we're down to 4 items. I'd like us to go down to 0 items. That'd be nice if one driver would do it. I got a feeling that ain't gonna happen because of the Ethernet adapter and the RAID controller. Yeah, so it says AMD chip software installed and it wants us to restart. Let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll pick up and do the next driver. We'll also check the device manager just to make sure that on the reboot it didn't, take care of a couple other things for us, which is quite possible. And, this should reboot rather quickly. Despite the fact I have left both the Windows 11 installer flash drive in there, it should no longer boot to it. It should automatically prioritize the RAID array first. We're going to find out right now. I really don't need the Windows 11 installer flash drive left in. I just forgot to unplug it. But you can see it doesn't make any difference. Our boot time also doesn't change much with the RAID array. That's why I mentioned once you hit 550 megabytes per second, for most end users, they don't see any benefit above that. But you guys are probably not like most end users. I'm going to guess if you're watching my channel, you're wanting to know a bit more than the average user. So whatever this is, it says drivers, it doesn't tell me what it's for. When it comes to stuff like this, if the drivers are on the flash drive and you don't know what they're for, you can right-click on the device manager, or right-click on the start menu, go to the device manager, and right up here somewhere, action, where is it? They take it away. They might have taken it away. We can double-click on this RAID controller, driver, driver details. Nope, that's not what I want. Update driver. Browse my computer and just point it to that flash drive folder right in here. In fact, it'll search through all these if you want. Just click OK and hit next. Now it'll search, which is what the installer didn't do. It found it and loaded it automatically. We did not have to point to the specific directory as long as it was unzipped. If it's zipped, it doesn't automatically look through the zip file. Multimedia controller, we can update the driver. Again, we probably want to install the Realtek driver. But again, we can just, without the Realtek app, probably just grab it right off the flash drive. It'll find it as long as it's unzipped. Same thing with this Bluetooth, double click, update driver, it's search, browse my computer. The default is still the last place we looked. It's going to find it. And we're going to repeat this with the last 2 items. There's the network controller, update driver, browse, next. Now these are the drivers downloaded and extracted from Minisforum. We've got one last thing here, whatever this is, update driver, browse, next. And hopefully it finds everything. Searching that flash drive, looking through the folders, still looking. I hope it doesn't come up empty because I have no idea what this is. Oh, it's the AMD IPU device. Close, close, close. Now when we look in the device manager, everything is happy. Okay, now let me unplug my Windows 11 installer and my driver's flash drives because we don't need these anymore. We've got a clean install here. Now I'm going to grab my utilities flash drive. That's the one you see me use all the time. And let's copy off Crystal Disk Mark. If I can get the flash drive into the USB port. All right, I'm going to go here. We're going to go here. Now you'll see we just have C and D. So we'll go back over to D, PC testing software, Crystal Disk Mark portable. Close that, open this, 64, yes. Let's test this RAID array. Drive C, go. Does anybody remember what we were getting before on the Kingston drive that came included with the UM760 Slim? I think it was around 4,800. Now we're at 14,000. So that's insane. 14,000 megabytes per second on a RAID 0 striped array using 2 fanxiang 2 terabyte Gen 4 drives. Wow. I mean, I knew mathematically and logically that's what we should have seen in theory, but in practice, actually seeing it work without, because I was worried about overhead. We're going to run this whole crystal disk mark test. We're going to see their final numbers and we'll save it. Holy cow. Wow. I would not expect a $300 mini PC. Now, bear in mind, we have $250 worth of upgraded flash drive, NVMe drives in there, darn near the whole cost of the computer. Doing this adds another $250. So if you spent $320 on the box and you wanted to do this and go through all this hassle, add another $250, you're at $570. And try and replicate creating this at home on a Ryzen 5 or better, using a new case, new power supply, new motherboard, new CPU, new cooler, new RAM, new storage, buying your Windows 11. Tell me if you can put that together for less than $570. I don't think you can. That's why I like mini PCs. They're cheaper. You get more for your money. They're smaller, they're quieter. They're not as repairable, but not that many people need repairs anymore. Quality control is excellent. As long as you're in warranty, you're good to go. If you're out of warranty, it might be cheaper to replace the unit than to repair it. That's the world we're living in here in the United States. I'm anxious to see those write speeds. Quite often, write speeds are going to be significantly lower than the read speeds. So if I see anything over 10, 11,000 on the write side of things, I am going to be a very happy camper. So we're just about to begin the write speed that's listed as 0 right now in the top right. It's preparing it. It's starting the write test. It'll do 5 of them. Here comes the first sequential write test. We're looking for big number, 12,249. Oh, I'm giddy. Worth it. It's stupid, but it's worth it. It's so stupid. I don't know why anybody could justify this. But there you go. Remember, once we've got this all configured, this is the time, if we know it's working and we've got all our drivers installed, I still should install the app for the sound. You'll see it still says there's no internet connected, but that's because I didn't plug the Ethernet cable in. As soon as I plug the Ethernet cable in, let me plug it in now just to prove it to you. Watch the bottom right down here. This globe starts flashing that a cable's been plugged in and it's negotiating with the router. That's something new to 24H2 that other Windows didn't do. And now you get the little terminal. We are plugged in and connected to the internet. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. Only took me 2.5 hours. I don't think I'm going to keep the configuration this way. I think it's dumb to have this much storage power in a Ryzen 5. But the fact that you can do it, and I've proven it, the hard part is locating the darn drivers. Once you've got all that, save it on a flash drive, keep it in a drawer, and you never have to go through the search again. Again, once you get it installed and configured like we've done here, use something like a Acronis to make an image of it, but you also need to use a Acronis to make your rescue disk. And click the little box that says, I want it to be able to boot on this machine. And Acronis should automatically grab the drivers that you've already installed to make the rescue disk specifically for this machine. Understand? Old Man 55 says, is this your go-to computer? My go-to computer is a Galaxy Book 3. That's my go-to. And then I have a Dell XPS. That's my play-around computer. And when I say play around, there's an office and there's a bedroom. So in the bedroom, I keep a laptop, and in the office, I keep a laptop. And I keep them separated. And that way I can do work while lying in bed, or I can do work at the office. The unit, the XPS is the older unit that I have, which is fully fine. The Galaxy Book 3 is the latest. There is a Galaxy Book 4, but it doesn't really, there's no reason for me to upgrade to it. There's no benefit to me. I don't want the Elite Snapdragon, or I don't want the Snapdragon processor. No, thank you. Some things like my Power Director, I'm told, won't work on it. Everything has to be translated from x86 into Snapdragon language, and those translations don't always work. And there should be a Windows 11 written specifically for Snapdragon. And if you can download any applications specifically written for Snapdragon, then Snapdragon may be good for you. On the other hand, I don't want to go through all that nonsense. I don't have any complaints. The Galaxy Book 3 is a 13900H. It's fast, fast, fast. Yeah, 32 gigs of RAM is soldered into it. You can't upgrade it. Don't need to. By the time that I don't have enough RAM in that Galaxy Book 3, I'll have a Galaxy Book 5 or 6. So I don't care. I'll never upgrade that RAM. It's better that it's soldered in. It's faster, it's more reliable, and the laptop can be thinner and made less expensive. I'm absolutely all for soldering in the RAM. Yes, please. There's our final numbers right here. Let me grab a screenshot or let's save that so we can compare it. So I will go to File, Save Image, RAID 0 UM760 Slim, 2X fanxiang 2 terabyte. That's pretty descriptive, isn't it? We'll save it as a JPEG and we'll put it right here on the desktop. Save. Should appear. There it is right there. Now we can close this. Let me go back over to camera 1 and address any final questions you have for today's show. What can I do for you? Fat Tony with a $5 Canadian super chat. Right on. Thank you, Fat Tony. That guy gets it. I have a lot of computers here, and my go-to for demonstrations is normally the MSO1. I really like that MSO1. But, you know, obviously we had the issue with the Zyke drive, but I'm kind of glad we had that issue since nobody else did. When Minisforum sends us a machine and they make claims that it's got USB4 and RAID 0, I want to test those claims because they said this also has 5 gig Ethernet, dual 5 gig Ethernet with 10 gig aggregation. This only has one Ethernet port, not two, and it's a 2.5. And I've let them know their website is wrong. It's just a mistake. They're not doing it on purpose. What I will likely do after the show is I'm going to take this all apart. I'm going to put it back the way it was because that seems more appropriate for Ryzen 5. Okay, that's how I'm not going to keep it this way. I'm not going to put $250 worth of storage in here. I need that storage for other things. Like we were just testing the Zyke drive with one of those a minute ago, and I'm going to need to do that again in the future. I don't have a bunch of these drives laying around. They're 120 bucks each, I think. Where's my... I know Maura's got a link to the fanxiang. So if I show you that link, which is right here, you'll see on Amazon today, $129.99 for the drive we're using, fanxiang S880 2 terabyte Gen 4. It's got a 10% off, so that's about $13 off. $13 minus $130 puts us at about $117 plus sales tax. So easily $250 for two of these, and that is a bargain because that's a fast drive. Now these drives do not have built-in heat sinks. You can find them with the alternative heatsink. They also have a 4 terabyte version. That's $289. Again, with 10% off, that'll be about $29 off of that price. So you're looking at about $260. Two of those would give us 8 terabytes at a cost of $540, which is nearly double the price of the Minisforum UM760 Slim. Whoops, I didn't mean to close that. Notice the website I went to for support. Minisforum/new/support is where you want to go if you have a Minisforum. Don't just go to the default support. You want to go to the new support page. And again, there's the details on the 760M. If you're curious about the specs and what it comes with at $319, I don't know that you can find a better computer, more powerful computer for less money than that. If you know of one that is equal to or greater than this Ryzen 5 7640HS, 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte that sells for $319 or less, please let me know, because as far as I know, this is leading the pack for this price. I'm not aware of any other manufacturer offering an equivalent or better system for the same or less money. If I'm wrong, please tell me in the chat room. That is not an endorsement, it's just a fact. unless you can prove otherwise. Seems like a great amount of power for that amount of money. And it is a reputable manufacturer. Minisforum is very good. The warranties are good. The company is honest. The products are well made. You know, sometimes people have problems. That's not normal. Go look at the reviews on Amazon for Minisforum products in general. They're generally very close to 5 stars on average. So that's why you keep seeing their products here. I like their products. Some products I like more than others, but it depends what you're using it for. Let's go back over to the chat. William Lynn says, is it still sustainable being a technician in 2024, knowing it's hard to find clients? I don't know why you think it's hard to find clients. That's ridiculous. Every business, whatever you spend your money on, your electric bill, the bank, your car, your dentist, your doctor, your lawyer, your grocery stores, your clothing stores, anywhere that you spend money has an IT department. And cybersecurity in particular you're going to make a ton of money in cybersecurity. But when you're focused on home users, the problem is you're looking in the wrong market. If you're trying to find home users to spend money on support of their computer, then I would agree that's getting hard. And home users are going to make you work harder for your money than business clients, and they're too inconsistent. A home user may only require your services once every 18 months. That means you need hundreds of them to make ends meet. But if you get hired by a corporation and you work in an IT department, you can likely make 6 figures or more with a steady job, doing everything from network infrastructure, desktop support, help desk, and cybersecurity, and a number of other fields depending on, look, the electric company that provides your electricity is massive. Look at how many employees they hire. Look how many employees AMD hires. Look how many employees Gigabyte hires. Look how many employees TSMC hires. Look how many employees Ford Motor Company hires. Everything in your life that you spend money on has an IT department. It's not going away. If anything, it's becoming more important. Hospitals have been shut down. Municipalities, city municipalities, sheriff's departments, all shut down through hackers because they didn't pay enough attention to cybersecurity. And cybersecurity experts are making bank right now and will likely continue to make bank because this problem is going to get worse before it gets better. And when a hospital is shut down, do you think they're going to nickel and dime the IT department to get it fixed? Because whatever they didn't have the money for to prevent it, they will spend 3 times for it after it happens to make it right. And then they need to maintain it because they don't want that to happen again. Everything in your life, every store you visit, every bill you pay has an IT department. There is so much work out there, it blows my mind. But if you want to work from home and you want to service residential clients, good luck. Good luck. You will never work harder for less in your life than to do that. So yes, plenty of opportunity in tech in the business world. Mark Baggett says, great show, Carey. Thank you, Mark. Fat Tony says he's waiting on the 9800 X3D. A lot of people are. Charlie Purdy says, great job. Hey, we got there. We did it the hard way, but we got there without any documentation. We just figured it out because it's mostly all the same. Intel or AMD. RAID is RAID is RAID. Even if it's a Synology or a QNAP, it's just presented a little differently. But the tasks that we're trying to accomplish are always the same. It's just, you could go to a foreign city where all the signs are in another language and you can kind of get what they mean based on inference, right? You could say, well, that's a stop sign. I don't need to know what it says. I already know I got the idea. Some things in life, no matter where you go, even if you can't speak the language, you kind of got an idea of what it says, and that's close enough. And so when we're dealing with setting up a RAID array, it's usually all pretty much the same. They just provide it in a different method. But we're accomplishing, regardless of the method, the end goal is always the same. So that's why I can figure it out without documentation, and I can do it relatively quickly. You know, ultimately, once I started on it, it was probably what, maybe an hour and a half at most for beginning to end. For somebody that didn't rehearse it, haven't done it in years, not in a long time on this, and certainly never on this particular computer, figured it out. Not rocket science. You've got to stop being in a hurry. You've got to stop trying to prove how fast you are. I am personally not interested in how fast you are. I'm personally interested in whether or not you enjoyed it. And I am also personally interested in people who take their time, pay attention to the details, don't watch the clock. Now, when you're working in an industry where you're watching the clock in order to get paid, different story. There's no reason for you to put that pressure on yourself. You could have done it faster. You'll do it faster next time. The first time you do it, just get to your goal. The second time you'll get to your goal faster. The third time you'll get to your goal faster. It's just like playing a song on a piano. First time you play that song, it's going to sound terrible if you've never played the piano before. Or if you remember that you used to play the piano, but you haven't played it in a long time, it's not going to sound as good as when you do it again and again and again. You are going to get better. Don't expect that you're going to go up to bat for the very first time, you're going to swing at the very first pitch, and you're going to hit a grand slam home run. Not likely. And if you set yourself up to do that, you are likely going to be discouraged and disappointed. And I want you to enjoy being at bat. Don't worry if you make contact with the ball. Be in the game. Stop being a spectator. Get the baseball bat, get up there, let them throw that high-speed pitch at you, and take a swing. And it's okay to miss. A good batter is a 300 batting score. That means they hit 1 out of every 3.2 pitches or something. That means they're missing, out of every ball that's thrown at them, they're missing twice as often as they're hitting. That's considered a great batter. Those are professional numbers. Don't expect too much. Just get the job done at your pace. If you need to take a break and pick it up tomorrow because you're burned out, you can approach it tomorrow, fresh mind, and suddenly it becomes easier. And the next time, say you need to do this to another one, I guarantee you're going to do it faster. Click, click, click. But you've got to start. And you cannot experience it by watching videos. There's no replacement for experience. You have to do it. You can watch and read about things all day. You can watch and read about playing a piano. It doesn't make you play the piano perfectly till you sit down and play the piano. You can watch and read how to ride a bicycle. But until you get on the bicycle, you really don't understand what balance is until you get on the bicycle and experience it. And then you figure it out in your way that you understand it. And my videos are here to hopefully inspire you and to give you some guidance, but not to turn you into robots that just go A, B, C, D, and you're not thinking about why you're doing what you're doing. You are ritualizing what you've seen and repeating it like a robot. I don't want you to do that. I want you to do it your way, but I want you to understand the path. You can take an entirely different path and still get to the same goal your way. I'm all for that. I want you to think. I don't want you to be a robot. And I don't want you to just be a spectator. I want you to experience it yourself in your own time, and don't worry about the clock and enjoy it. Just have a good time. It's not a race. I'd rather it was done well than it was done fast. And the more you do it, you'll be able to keep doing it well, but keep doing it faster because it'll be easier and familiar. It's the only way you can get there. You can play this video back 100 times. It's not going to help you anymore. Until you put your hands on it, that's when you'll start to understand. All right, that's your what do we call that? Affirmation. That's your affirmation for today. Getting older. My Google brain isn't running as fast. All right. John Paul Bacon says critical thinking is not being taught or not very well now. Well, that's what we're here for. And sometimes people just have to go and figure it out their own way. Go through life on your own path. I'm all for that. I just don't want you to be a robot. I don't want you to just watch what you see and repeat it. I want you to watch what you see and be inspired by it and use it as a guide to get you started. And as you move forward, keep using the video for guidance, but do it on your own. And there's no replacement for experience. There's just nothing that you can read or watch that replaces experience. And the only way you get the experience is by doing it. And my goal is to encourage you to do it. If it interests you and you're here and you're watching this, have you tried? I'd love to see you try and succeed, even if it takes you a week to figure it out. I'm okay with it. Have a good time. If you don't need RAID 0, but you're really intrigued by it, and you just want to do it for the experience, do it. You don't have to use 2 terabyte drives. You could have a couple 1 terabyte. Just make sure they're the same size. Plug them in. Have at it. Keep your main drive so you can always put it back to the way it was. You won't hurt anything. And then let us know what it was like. Let us know in the chat room. I'm telling you, your experience is far more valuable and more useful than anything you'll watch on any video and anything you'll read in any book. So I hope you'll try it if it interests you, and then let us know, what was it like? How long did it take? Did you enjoy it? That would be wonderful. All right, let's see. Patrick Manny says he finished installing 24H2 on an unsupported i7 7700K. Not recommended, Patrick, not recommended. Bypassing the security requirements is useless because you might as well be running Windows 10. Any benefit of running Windows 11 when you circumvent the security requirements makes you more vulnerable to attack than just simply running Windows 10. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should, and it doesn't mean you're getting away with anything. Those security requirements are not random. And when the guards come down because of the railroad crossing and you drive around them because you're like, oh, I can drive around them, nobody's going to stop you from driving around them. And if you get hit by the train, well, you know what the guards were for. They weren't there just to slow down your day. You can do it if you want to. Highly, highly recommend. If you have a system that's 10 years old or older, it is extraordinarily foolish, unwise, and bad decision-making to force Windows 11 on it. But do what you're going to do. That's just my advice. If you came to me with a computer that was not supported by Windows 11 and you wanted me to repair it, or Geek Squad or anybody else that's legitimate, they're going to say, can't touch it. No way. We're not going to take liability for that. If I wouldn't do it in my business, I wouldn't recommend it to you guys. Fantastic show, Johnny says. Glad you did not give up. I'm not known for giving up. Say anything about me, but that is absolutely one they won't say. Let's see. I think we're all caught up. Mark Thomas says, Carey, would you go for Intel or AMD? It's up to the customer. Whatever the customer wants, I'm happy to install either one. I don't care. This whole fanboyism of picking sides is silly. It's immature. I don't play that game. I'm interested in running a business, keeping happy customers, and making a profit that can pay the bills and keep me in business. And if that customer wants AMD, that customer's getting AMD. If that customer wants Intel, that customer's getting Intel. I don't care. It really doesn't matter to me. It's silly to me. Silly that people would pick sides. Whatever makes me money, whatever makes my customer happy, Intel, AMD, I don't care. I hope I got all of your super chats. So again, thank you to Fat Tony and David Graham for your super chats today, along with our membership renewals from Bill, Sony T, Charlie Purdy, Chris Johnson, Duster Fuller. Our thanks to the folks at Minisforum, the folks at Zyke Drive, so we can test these things. We purchased We might have purchased this Minisforum, I can't remember, but we definitely purchased these drives. And again, this money isn't falling out of trees, and it's not coming from YouTube. This is coming from you guys, your memberships, your super chats. We can't thank you enough for it, because without your support, we would not have been able to do this video today, especially the extraordinary generosity we've seen from Buster, Oystein, Frankie B, and Paul Gray. And what's really cool is none of those people are in the same continent. It's like Buster's in Scotland, Frankie B's in New York, Paul Gray is in Australia, Oystein is in Norway. Like, how crazy is that? And those 4 individuals have been so generous. I have to name them separately. They're like super members. All of the members, though, are all very important to me, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Everybody who's just hanging out in the chat room, we love that you're here, regardless, enjoying and interacting with us. Kindness is the most important part. The fact that you guys make friendships and talk to each other in there, I love that. You help each other, I love that. Thank you for being a part of this amazing community. Thanks, of course, to Mara for all the work she does in the background. And thanks again to Acronis, RoboForm, and VIP CDK Deals, who offer you a 30% discount specifically for this audience till the end of the year. And we hope to renew that. We'll update you as that becomes up for renewal. We hope they all renew. And it's going to depend on whether or not it's worth for them to keep offering that discount. If you guys aren't using it, they'll probably retract it at the end of the year. There's no point in keeping it if you aren't using it. So I hope you take advantage of those offers. I hope you look at my past videos if you're not regularly viewing. We've done a lot of Windows 11 24H2 content that is in the video library. I hope you check it out. It may answer a lot of questions you have. If not, then certainly leave your question in the comments section. And if it's a video you've overlooked, we'll put a link to it there for you. If it's a question of support, we sometimes do these Ask Me Anything. That's where we can help you out. We don't do free support unless you're a member. And there are other channels where you can get free support, like Doug Betts, live Windows training with Doug Betts. Same deal. He'll help you live for the content to help everybody. But if you want help privately, you got to pay for it just like everybody else. That's generally how it works on YouTube. So we're very much happy to help each other. If you have a question, the chat room will also help you. Again, you've got to be here during the live to take advantage of that, or be a member if you want that personal service. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.